And welcome into Juck on Bucks, the weekend show coming to you live from Akron, Ohio. And we got a fun show planned for you today. Depending on what David Sanders does, it might be even more fun, but we're going to have fun regardless. I planned this show over a month ago as soon as David Sanders made his announcement that he was going to do his commitment today. And he's got his mind made up. Today, he's going to let us know. I got some buddies coming on to join me today because whether or not the decision goes good, we're going to have some fun or not, talk some Buckeyes. It's not going to be all about David Sanders. In the middle of the show, we're going to have his decision on here. And we actually have someone on site, Mello from the Buckeye Boyz. You guys have probably all seen Mello in the chats. Mello is on site. He is actually in the gymnasium where David Sanders is going to make his commitment. We're going to pull him up straight from his phone, and we're going to watch it directly live as he makes his decision known to everybody else. But we're just a couple of Saturdays away from real football, and we can finally talk about football games instead of all the recruiting and coaching decisions and camps and all the stuff that we've been talking about all off season. I can't wait. And today, not just a David Sanders show, but kind of a preview of what I plan on doing after every single game for a post-game show when the season gets started. I'm going to come on probably late in the fourth quarter, roll in a couple of my buddies, and we're going to have a post-game show every game this year. But as far as today's format here, I think we've done this 4 times. Just kind of hop on and do a little live when a potential Buckeye is about to announce where he's going to go to school. We started with Trajan Odom, defensive lineman out of North Carolina. That was a huge win over Oregon and USC. We came back for Justin Hill, edge out of Cincinnati. That one, man, speculated to be all Buckeyes right up until like the morning of. And even with everybody saying that they thought that morning it was going to be Alabama, I didn't believe it until he said it out of his mouth. That one stung. But I really still believe that he might be in the cards, man. I don't know. I want him so bad. We came back and did it with the 5-star linebacker, Riley Pettijohn. James Laurinaitis got it done. Pettijohn was thought to be all Texas his entire recruitment. Then the Buckeyes got in. Texas A&M got in. USC came heavy with the bag man late, trying to sell him on being the stalwart of their defense that they could build around after they had they had 2 really great defensive linemen from Georgia signed early. They flipped out of the class, and USC was trying to use all that money to come after Riley Pettijohn and get him. In the end, James Laurinaitis locked it down. And what a class James Laurinaitis has got going with Pettijohn, TJ Alford, and my boy Eli Lee up here in Akron, Ohio. Then came Jarquez Carter. Jarquez out of Gainesville, Florida. We were live for him. Very underrated defensive tackle, in my opinion, just because he's a little bit on the shorter side. Great burst, nasty player, would currently be second on the current Ohio State team in bench reps of 225, which is incredible for an 18-year-old kid. For a long time, we thought he might not even be a take by the Buckeyes. When it became clear that he was, there were still some questions coming into that decision. I was leaning Buckeyes. We won. And that brings us to today. David Sanders, 6'6", 280, the number 1 lineman in the country. We've talked about him ad nauseum. He's been the top topic of recruiting for as long as I can remember. Out of North Carolina, he's a walk-in and play day 1 left tackle if that's what's needed on your team. And on this team, that's probably what's going to be needed. Incredibly physical, ridiculously agile for his size, loves football. His numbers in the gym, as far as weights, advanced. He's smart, wants to be a physician, comes from a good family, checks every box. I mean, more than checks every box. Just a fantastic kid. The family placed a very high value on him staying close to home. And that's all we heard early on. So South Carolina was in the mix. NC State was in the mix. Then as he became a bigger prospect, Clemson was very heavily in the mix. They started traveling around, went to Georgia, Tennessee. Eventually, Ohio State got him on campus. And Ohio State seemed to overcome that distance barrier, get the family to come around to the thought that flying to Columbus wasn't so bad. Pretty quick. Ryan Day, Justin Fry, all hands on deck recruitment. and they worked hard to show him that Ohio State was the best fit for him. Ohio State was officially in the ballgame at that point, and they just kept building that relationship, pulling tighter with the other competitors. And at some point, Ohio State kind of took the lead, according to most people who follow recruiting closely, for a decent amount of time. And it appeared the Buckeyes were going to be able to get David Sanders. And the word from the money people was, we're going to do whatever it takes to make this happen. The directive for the trenches coming into this year, and this is kind of why we're seeing a wide receiver class where we're going after the top guys, but kind of pivoting off of them if it becomes clear that they're going to be big money guys. The money's being spent on the trenches. Larry Johnson's got it done on the defensive line. We've not seen it so far on the offensive line. We might see it today. We'll see. But the family came in for their official visit. The volleyball team was there. His sister wants to be a volleyball player. They met with all the people in education that David Sanders wanted to meet with, and then some. They took him to the hospital. They did everything right. And after that visit, it really felt like the Buckeyes were in control. As we got about a month out from this decision date, that was the final weekend before the dead period, the last time you're going to get to see your recruit for quite a while. And the Buckeyes chose not to have anything that weekend. David Sanders instead went to Nebraska and back to Tennessee. He later announced his final four, and they're sitting right beside me here: Georgia, Nebraska, Ohio State, and Tennessee. Georgia never really felt in this one to me. It didn't feel like they were pushing as hard as they would have needed to get him. They're in good shape on their offensive line. They tend to prefer bigger bodies. Not that they wouldn't like Sanders. They absolutely would, but they also don't generally go max deal on guys. They're not really in the position that Ohio State is right now when it comes to offensive line bodies in the program at various stages of development. Nebraska was clawing as hard as they could to get in this thing. Ohio State, Tennessee in really good position. So David Sanders chooses to go to Tennessee and Nebraska, that last visit before the dead period. And things heading into that seemed kind of even, with Ohio State maybe with a slight edge. And coming out of that, the outside perspective, we started hearing rumblings that Tennessee was pulling in front. Shortly after that, we started hearing that Tennessee had offered a really large deal that Ohio State either could not or would not be able to match. And it sounded like it had something else tied to it that was more than just cash. Something else. I don't know what it is, but people started getting stronger in their conviction that he was going to Tennessee. We started seeing the crystal balls and the RPMs from the guys that do that kind of thing pop out for Tennessee. And that was led by Steve Wiltfong, the most respected name in the biz, who, when he was at 247, seemed to operate a little bit differently. He's a little more flippant with these things, I think, at On 3. And after he did that, we saw a lot of people kind of piggyback off of his. And at this point, there's not a single one for Ohio State. They're all for Tennessee. But when you follow this stuff long enough, you can kind of tell by the articles these guys write when they make these things, and they always make a little article about why they're making their pick, whether they're doing it off of real intel or they're doing it off of connecting the dots. And to me, this just feels like a connect the dot. He visited Tennessee 8 times total, 5 times this calendar year. Only visited Ohio State 3 times. Okay, fair enough, but Ohio State didn't come in until much later. Tennessee and Nebraska were his last visits. Fair enough, but David Sanders said himself he didn't go to Ohio State that weekend because Ohio State, quote, really didn't have anything going on. So, is it a connect the dot pick? Do they know something? Was Ohio State able to come in late with a deal? We don't know. But this is big. This is an absolutely huge. It's not just huge for the 2025 line, because he's our starting left tackle if he comes in, unless Josh Simmons comes back, which is highly doubtful, as many of us think he's going to be a second round, maybe even a first round pick if he enters the draft. So walking in, winning that job right off the rip. We also know it's enormous for offensive line coach Justin Fry. Recruiting is a zero-sum game. Nobody wants to hear excuses, particularly when you've not planned well in recruiting. That's where we sit heading into the decision. And David Sanders made himself a little promo for this decision. Let's have a look-see.
Commitment is a daily choice to keep going, to say no to the distractions, and decide that you remain focused on your goal and do what it takes to get there. Throughout this journey, much has been required, nothing was given, and everything was earned. I have enjoyed every second in leaving my mark on the game I love. I have appreciated my journey as I am humbly blessed. I have been patient. I put in the work, seen and unseen. I have remained dedicated to my craft as I understand that one chapter is closing and now I have to write the next. I have been truly blessed to receive an overwhelming amount of collegiate scholarship offers, and without further consideration, I have chosen to continue my academic and athletic endeavors at
The decision for a high schooler, man. That reminds me of the promos for LeBron's decision way back in the day when he took his talents to South Beach. And by the way, man, these guys are still saying, I'm going to take my talents, which is just, it gets me every time. But I've documented several times on my show where the class of 2025 sits as far as the offensive line goes and how we got there. And the biggest reason that this commitment is now so big is because we only got Jake Cook, who's been pigeonholed into center. And if he ever plays another position, I'm going to go ballistic because we passed on center Andrew Stargell, who wanted to commit. Stargell can only play center because of his height, and pigeonholed Jake Cook into center when he doesn't need to. He's 6'5". We see Carson Hinsman playing guard right now. You know, we see him move around all the time on the interior. Pigeonholed Jake Cook into that, turned Stargell away, who was a hell of a lineman, who Ohio State went and did their own evaluation on, offered him, had him in for an official. He wanted to come to Ohio State. That didn't happen. So we got Jake Cook and we got Carter Lowe, a borderline 5-star, an absolute beast, a big win by Justin Fry. He gets mad credit for me for that one. I know he's in state, but he's from Toledo. The people in Toledo are split down the middle between Ohio State and Michigan was the other school big in on this. And the Buckeyes won. Not only that, but the people at Carter Lowe's school, the AD, the coach, all Michigan folks. Bucks got him. And not only, this is a guy who's relatively new to football, and he is just learning. And when you saw him last year, his film from last year, and you saw him over the summer, he looks even better now, progressing fast. And I think if he had another year of progression, he might be a top 15, 20 prospect in the country. He's that good. So this is a huge one. But offensive line, there's 5 dudes out of 22. That's 23% of your starting lineup. You need bodies at various stages of progression. And right now, we're lacking. 2 in any cycle does not work. There's only one guy still in the mix that the Buckeyes are in on, and that's JUCK KRIS. Pretty good prospect out of Maryland. He's considering Colorado, Maryland, Ohio State. And we haven't heard much about him for, I don't know. It's been quite a while since we've heard anything from that camp. However, Steve Wiltfong did just come out recently and say that his previous RPM for JUCK KRIS to Ohio State, he now feels confident again in. For a while there, it looked like he was being swayed to Colorado because his buddy Jordan Seaton, their buddies from Maryland, obviously goes to Colorado, and he's going to be the starting left tackle this year at Colorado as a freshman. Jordan Seaton, the guy, coincidentally, came down to, we thought, Ohio State and Tennessee last year and ended up surprising everybody and picking Colorado. So that's where it stands with JUCK KRIS. But he's the only guy that we kind of got our hands on right now as a potential prospect, but he's not really a tackle prospect. They're talking about maybe swinging him at any position on the line. I don't think he's a tackle, but that's it. That's the guy. And as far as guys that, potential flip candidates, there's none that I see. You lost the commitments on those guys the first time around for a reason. I don't know. We'll see. As I look through those prospects, I don't really see anybody that pops out that we could potentially get. But they are still definitely in contact with Micah DeBose, who committed to Alabama. a guy who has lived in Ohio before, has family in Ohio. That one stung, losing him to Alabama, but he's been playing high school football down there, so it wasn't really a surprise. So as far as the transfer portal, I broke it down on the show, but relying on the transfer portal for offensive linemen is a really risky proposition. And the reason that is because in the transfer portal class of 2023, there was so much demand for offensive linemen that teams recognized that, and they reprioritized their NIL deals to make sure that they were going to keep their offensive linemen home. So you went from 40 four-star offensive linemen in the transfer portal in the class of 2023 to the following class of 2024, just 12. And for comparison, there were 40 quarterbacks that were four-star above. Just 12 offensive linemen. And of those 12 offensive linemen, when you're Ohio State, to upgrade what you currently have on your starting lineup, you need a pretty doggone good lineman. I've looked through those guys. I think I see about 3, maybe 4 that would have been an upgrade over a guy like Josh Fryer, who was very, average to above average last year. Some people would say below average. I think he did better than that. But my point is, when you get to that point, now you are essentially recruiting these guys against a guy, a bunch of teams that also need an offensive lineman. There's only 3 or 4 to choose from. And you're banking on the same guy who's missing on the recruiting in the out of high school to recruit these guys out of the portal. It's just a situation you don't want to be in. You don't want to have to be in it. You don't want to have to rely on that. And let's hope we don't get there. Let's hope we don't get there. Let's hope we can rustle up some feathers. As far as potential prospects, should David Sanders miss in Ohio that we have not offered, there's a prospect that's committed to Kentucky named Jamil Atkins, 6'8", massive dude. We'll see if they take a flyer on him, take another look at him after his senior film starts coming out, trying to flip him off at Kentucky. You got Nolan Davenport out of Massillon. Nolan Davenport is a guy that's committed to Wisconsin. He came in and camped the same day that Jake Cook came in and camped. Justin Fry got a good look at the two of them. And Nolan Davenport committed to Wisconsin that very night when he left camp. So apparently that conversation didn't go well. He's a converted tight end. They told him that they wanted him to put on some weight. And to me, it looked like he put on some dirty weight, not really, he just didn't have enough time to pack on enough muscle mass. But a couple of potential in-state guys that they may pivot to, take a look at as we are here at 12:47, getting ready for David Sanders' announcement. We got Mello, our guy Mello, is on the scene, which is wild. And I'm going to have a little talk with a couple of you guys, hit some super chats, and thank you all so much for joining me. We got our buddy here. Io, thank you. Bourbon Brent, one of my buddies, and the Blue Wolverine. This is the only Wolverine that's allowed in here. Thank you so much, buddy. Appreciate you. Thanks for the 10. My buddy Terry, we need to focus on Ohio boys to fill the roster. And boy, do we ever, man. Particularly when we go from 85 to 105 scholarships, that's in the class of 2026. I think that without a doubt, from 85 to 105, the best thing to possibly do, because you got to keep in mind, we lost 25 guys to the transfer portal last year. And that's not an outlier. You look at teams that recruit like us, Georgia, Texas, 25 guys to the portal at Georgia, 24 at Texas. So is there any reason we should think that that number should go dramatically down? I don't think so. So you can pretty much count on losing 20-ish guys to the portal. Then you got guys that are leaving to graduation or the NFL. That's about another 20 to 25. So you're losing a lot of guys every single year. And what do you want to do with position 85 to 105? I think the best thing to do is to get guys that are going to not expect to play till year 3 or 4, guys that know they need to develop, that are going to be loyal to the program. And what's the best odds for those kind of guys? It's Ohio guys. So I think we're going to start seeing larger classes, and those larger numbers are going to be filled in, the same as we would see a standard class, but then numbers 22 to 30 are going to be focused more on Ohio guys that they know are going to be in the program for a while and developing. And I think that's going to be a great thing because, always some of those guys that get passed over end up popping at a Kentucky is building their program right now, a good program on the backs of those second tier guys that Ohio State may have offered in the Tressel era. We watched D'Antonio and Michigan State do the same thing. And Kentucky is currently doing that now. And they're absolutely feasting on it, and they're doing really well with it. So that's how I think that that's going to go. And I hope it does because we all love those guys. Terry again, we failed when we didn't have kids on late spring visits. Never let another team have a bite of the apple. Poor effort to me. And Terry is talking about that last visit time during the dead period comes and you get one weekend and everybody generally has a big weekend where they bring in their commits and their targets. They try to get as many targets with their commits so that they can build that camaraderie, and those commits can try to lure the targets in, show them a great time. Oregon calls it Saturday Night Live. Auburn calls it Big Cat Weekend. Auburn absolutely killed at Big Cat Weekend. Got in a bunch of guys that were committed elsewhere, got flips, took their class from, I think, 17 to the top 5. And it's a big weekend. Last year, the Buckeyes did a barbecue. The year before, they didn't do anything, but they didn't do anything because they wanted those guys to come in for the Notre Dame game. They had a big game early on, and they used that as kind of that weekend. But Ryan Day said that he wanted to give the guys some time off. They had worked every day in June. It's certainly understandable. You want your guys fresh heading into camp. But nobody else did that. Everybody else held an event. So, people are going to point to that for sure and say this was the turning point in David Sanders' recruitment from what we were hearing. And from the outside perspective, you could say that, and it might be fair. But if he goes to Tennessee and it also coincides with them making a really big revamped offer, that big revamped offer was coming regardless. So, but, I'm with you. I think it was a strategic error. I said it back then. I just don't know how much it really mattered in this particular recruitment. But definitely, if you have the option of having your commits and your targets on your campus or somebody else's, yes, you would prefer they're on your campus for sure. JR, my man, JR will be on the show a little later. Recruiting the portal is arguably more difficult than normal recruiting. Very few top tier guys, and you can't rely on time to develop all of them. And he's exactly right. And specifically with offensive linemen, it's a totally different deal. I know we've watched all these quarterbacks go around, Dylan Gabriel, Will Howard, down in Miami. They're everywhere. Everybody's got a starting quarterback out of the portal. It is a different ballgame with offensive linemen, and particularly now. It wasn't always like that. It was always a little different. And again, we're only in year 4 of this now, but it is going to be progressively more difficult as teams now understand there is so much more demand than there is supply. And that means you pay your guys to stay home. And that is priority number 1 in the portal for a lot of these teams, particularly some of the mid-range Big 12 ACC teams who have some good linemen. They are absolutely trying to keep their guys home. Jay Thompson, Fryer was slightly above average last season, which doesn't cut it in Columbus. Hopefully there is some fire to all of the smoke that he has had a great offseason, and we've certainly heard that from a lot of people. What gives me a lot of promise is he's one of just 2 guys who won that Iron Buckeye in both the spring and the fall. That's a hard thing to win. And in the spring, there was just 3 total. In the fall, it looked like they were giving him out a little bit more freely. I think there was a dozen, but a bunch of them were the seniors who returned. So, I don't know, but I absolutely love that he won that twice. And it gives me confidence that is potentially going on. He is actually improving. We've certainly heard it from almost everybody. And when we look at this offensive line, I'm going to tell you straight up, once the season starts, I'm not talking about this crap anymore. The recruiting crap, like Justin Fry, Tim Drevno, and what these guys are going to put out on the field, I believe is going to be a top 5 offensive line in the country. I just do. When you look at these guys, when you look at Josh Simmons, who has changed his body, he was already athletic as heck, carrying on 20 extra pounds of flab. That's gone. And he's powerful enough to get some push without that weight. You look at Donovan Jackson in his senior year, Seth McLaughlin, the most consistent lineman that they've had, Ryan Day said the other day. We know how smart he is. 3 weeks into spring camp, I heard Donovan Jackson say they were asking Seth McLaughlin questions, the other lineman. So when you got a lineman at center who's both consistent and smart, he's the guy leading the group. What a difference. Think of that difference from a guy like Carson Hinsman last year, who's making the calls out there in his second year, just trying to learn how to play the position. You got a guy here at McLaughlin with 2 years of starting experience who graded out as the number 2 center in the SEC 2 seasons ago. Didn't have a great season last year. And, it is what it is. Go over to right guard, and it's looking like Tegra's going to win that battle. Chip looked really excited about Tegra. Tegra's 6'6", 330. A former, he was the number 36 prospect in the country. So just a couple places out of a 5-star. And I got some serious, the guy's a great prospect. We'll see what we got. I can tell you that is, traits. High school film doesn't tell you everything, but it tells you traits. And this dude is nasty. I put out a little short the other day, and Tegra is just, he's straight up disrespectful on the field. He finishes a block and he does it rudely, which is interesting because he's a really mild-mannered dude. And then you got Fryer, and we'll see how much he's improved. They're all excited about it. But I think the biggest difference is not just Chip. We know Chip's a huge difference, but also Tim Drevno. Tim Drevno getting in there, helping Justin Fry. And, that leaves us the ultimate conundrum. You got a wonderful offensive line, I think, hugely improved, guys developing, and then you've got this recruiting issue on the offensive line. And it is a huge issue. It really is. We talk about the offers, and I've gone over this 100 times. They're 50% in the class of 2025 to Alabama, Michigan, Georgia. You look ahead to the class of 2026, 50% again. You have to take more shots to make more shots, and that's just not happening. My ideal scenario is that D'Antonio and Day come in and say, listen, we've got to revamp the strategy here. I don't even know that Justin Fry's a bad recruiter. I don't think he's taking enough shots. He may be, but I just don't think we know yet because he's not, Anyway, I'm going to bring on a guest here with me now. My buddy Dan from the Best Damn Podcast in the land. You've probably seen me on his show. I've played little snippets if you're someone who watches the show regularly, but we've got a really slamming audience here, man. We're at 1,000 people, which is awesome, guys. Thanks so much for joining me. Appreciate you so much. And let's bring in my buddy Dan DIVJAK coming in to say hello to all of us. Yo, Dan.
Chuck, what's up, buddy?
How you doing, brother?
I'm good, man. I'm just excited for this announcement in 15 minutes.
Now, you and I, we speak, I don't know, 6-7 times a day via text message usually. We are both under the impression here that there is a lot of connecting the dots going on with this particular projection that David Sanders is going to choose Tennessee. Tell us how you feel about it.
Yeah, I mean, I echo what you've said so far. I mean, here's the deal. On August 9th, on August 8th, Wiltfong, pretty much put out an article that said it's anybody's guess. And then on August 9th, he guessed and put out a crystal ball or whatever he's calling it now that he's over at On3. And then literally within a minute of that, Pete Nakos puts one out of his own. And then 24 minutes later, the third guy comes in. And then later that day, the fourth guy comes in. There's been no activity since August 9th on any front. The only thing I've seen is an article that did come out with his dad, who played it very, very close to the vest. I did find it interesting that he said that the NIL, it wasn't necessarily the best offer. It wasn't at the forefront of the decision. We've heard different things about that. I don't know, man. I think, I know you don't like this phrase, but I feel pretty good that he was a silent commit to us at one point, which at the end of the day holds no water whatsoever. But when you look at the boxes that needed to be checked, that they were very forthright about, I think we check all of them better than anybody else. I mean, the distance thing is the only one, and it's a 90-minute flight from Charlotte to Columbus, and they're going to have a private jet for him.
For sure.
So, I'm optimistic. I called it my shot on our show yesterday. I'm going to say we get him.
All right. So Dan DIVJAK putting in his official flag for the Buckeyes for David Sanders. And we're probably going to find out in about a half. And I imagine they'll come on and putz around for 15 minutes before he announces it to us. But, we got a conundrum, Dan. We've certainly detailed in depth on both of our shows the issues with offensive line recruiting. And at the same time, we got a guy who it looks like has taken an offensive line that certainly underperformed last year. And again, we're just speculating. I think we both think it's going to be a hell of a lot better this year. And when you've got the product on the field going good, but any great chef needs the ingredients, and we don't got the ingredients coming in. My thought is this is something that Pantoni and Day need to come in and assist in revamping the strategy here. What's going on? Where are we going wrong? And how do we fix it? And I think it starts, number one, with more offers. We saw the panic offers go out. And for those who aren't familiar with this story, the initial offers go out throughout the cycle for years in advance. And Justin Fry notoriously sends out very few offers. Well, he missed on all of those first offers, except for Carter Lowe. And then in late June, or late May, early June, he sent out about 10 offers, and he was able to make momentum with almost all those guys. You had Zaire Addison. He ended up signing at Oregon. Mario Nash signed at Mississippi State. Caden Strayhorn signed at Michigan. Jackson Lloyd signed at Alabama. But Jackson Lloyd, an excellent tackle, he was on campus just a week after Ohio State offered him. I mean, he was very interested. The problem was they weren't in on him early enough. He just had, in all these guys, they had existing relationships elsewhere that were just too strong for him to overcome. And that's why I say, I don't even know if he's a bad recruiter once he gets in. I mean, and I know he gets saddled with this. Is there a way they can fix this? Can they direct him? Can they assist him? Other than, the fire fry that we constantly hear that I'm not really down with, because I feel like there's a way you might be able to get the best of both worlds now that we can also, if they wanted to, have a different traveling recruiter taking over the offensive line. You got your 10 now that you can designate. It doesn't have to be Fry.
No, it doesn't have to be, but man, you're paying the guy $1 million a year. He's the third highest paid offensive line coach in the country. You've got Ryan Day on record saying that recruiting is a number one priority for all of his coaches. That would be a tough sell. I've actually advocated for that approach with somebody like Larry Johnson, just because, the dude's 73, right? And he's got the street cred as a developer. I don't think that hurts us on the recruiting trail. Man, I would negative recruit against the primary offensive line coach not being out on the trail if I was competing against Ohio State. So that's going to be a tough sell. It is perplexing, buddy, because you've got Day, you've got Pantoni, you've got the guy that we just brought over from Alabama, their director of personnel or whatever they called him. Why hasn't the strategy shifted? Because it's Ryan's been pretty good with adjusting and making changes when he has to. We've seen it on the defensive side of the ball. We've seen it on the offensive side of the ball with him, giving up play calling and bringing in an OC. But why something as simple as this? Why is it not changing? Is there something we don't know? It's perplexing.
It really is. And how do you feel about this offensive line on the field this year?
I was at those first 4 practices and I feel really, really good. I think that the development is there. We talked about this on our show yesterday, which I need to give a shout out to my buddy Chad, best damn pod in the land. We drop episodes on Tuesdays and Fridays. We're having a little bit of a blitz to our first 500 subscribers. So if you want to jump over there and give us a listen and subscribe, we'd appreciate it. But we talked about yesterday that I think the development is actually a strong suit. I think all indications are that Fry knows how to develop. You look at Hinsman. Hinsman started 12 games last year as a true sophomore in a position that he didn't play the previous year. And for all, from what I can tell, he improved, right? Simmons came from a no-name, program and completely out of shape with a horrible propensity for committing penalties, and he improved. And then he transformed himself in the offseason. And I am one of those people that believes he'll be a first-round pick this year. He's just got that NFL offensive tackle look now. So the development piece is there. I'm excited about it. I do think Chip plays a big part in that with his scheme. I do think Drevno is having a much bigger impact than people probably realize. I think it's going to be a strong suit, top 3 or 5 in the nation for sure. I think we're a finalist for the Joe Moore Award.
Big words. I love it. When you were at practice, how much did you see Tim Drevno involved now that these guys are allowed to, the analysts are allowed to help?
He was very involved. You got to keep in mind the first couple of days were mainly individual drills and things like that. You know, they had their team sessions, but they weren't nearly as intense as the 3rd and 4th day. He was heavily involved. And then, you know, once that 4th day rolled around, it almost seemed like he was maybe taking a lead role a little bit. But make no mistake about it, it's a group effort. I mean, you got 3 or 4 guys out there. There's one guy I couldn't take serious because he's I don't know, man. He's like 6'8", and his legs, he looks like a newborn dare trying to stand up for the first time. And I'm just like, I can't take that guy serious. But the players seem to respond to him, so that's all that really matters.
Leg day, huh?
he skipped leg day for sure. But yeah, no, I mean, it's I think it's a group effort for sure. I think the reports that we've seen are all accurate.
So Uncle Lou in the house here. Shout out Uncle Lou. This is my dude. I don't know if you guys know Uncle Lou. He's been doing a college football pod forever. One of my inspirations. Lou, thanks for joining me, but I got a bone to pick with Lou. Lou talks about Ohio State losing to the SEC. He talks about it a lot, but he continually brings up this Missouri game. Dan, tell Lou why he's ridiculous to bring up this Missouri game.
Oh, God, Lou, come on, buddy. I spent 15 years down in there, so I know who Lou is. My daughter's side of the family are all UGA fans. UGA actually was my SEC team until recently. But man, come on. Like, you can't look at you took a guy that never played center before and you started him at center in the last game of his career. You plugged in a guy that you know his best case use would be a revolving door at a major hotel in Enoch. I mean, and then they didn't make any adjustments. I mean, were there some things to be concerned about? Yeah, but I think that, once DEVAN went down and, you got Lincoln in there, and people don't realize, man, a third string quarterback gets no real reps throughout the season. If they're running the practice squad, they're running plays off of a card. They don't get a single first team rep once the season starts. So Lincoln went in there as a true freshman who, if I'm not mistaken, he didn't even play spring ball that year, did he? He came in the summer.
Correct.
Yeah. So, I mean, dude, like you can't take anything away from that offensive performance in the Missouri game. What you do need to focus on, Lou, and what you need to be concerned about, Unc, is our defense and the performance that they had in that game. Nobody wants to talk about the fact that we gave up 14 fourth quarter points to a top 10 SEC team that was putting points up on everybody all year long.
They actually did better at Sanford Stadium against Georgia than they did against the Ohio State defense.
This is true. In Ohio State defense, that was on the field for 85% of the game. So, and oh, by the way, that defense is better this year. So, yeah, that Missouri game, just stop. That's nonsense to keep bringing that up. It's a tactic to divert attention away from what's the reality, and that's that we're going to be there with them at the end of this year.
It is for sure, but appreciate you in here, Lou. Chocolate Chip Scooch says Seth McLaughlin is a legit NFL center. Thanks for the 199, buddy. I definitely think he's going to have a really good shot. Snaps, I don't know if this is going to be an issue or not, but I really have a feeling that had a lot to do with just the yips, but I think it happened a little more than just the end of the year when he was having some issues there last year. It happened a bit. I heard some of the Bama fans were saying it was happening even with Bryce the year before, but I don't know. What do you think, Dan?
I mean, I've got some pretty good intel that there was a lot that went into that. Apparently it was a group effort as to what. I don't think it was the yips. Number one, I don't think it was the yips at all. I think it was a communication issue. My intel tells me that Milroe would often forget to clap, which was the predecessor to the verbal command. And then all of a sudden, Seth would hear a verbal command without the clap, and he'd be like, oh, crap, I need to snap the ball. or he would just forget to, or, do the verbal command, or you couldn't hear the verbal command. He was very soft spoken for some reason. There were apparently meetings that took place throughout the year between Seth and Milroe and Saban to address this issue. And so it was way more than the yips. And there were some snaps those 4 days I was there, man, but you gotta take into account the number of reps that they were getting on a daily basis there. You're going to see some bad snaps over the course of a 3-hour practice when they're getting as many reps in that they will all season in one practice.
Exactly. Let's bring in our buddy, Chris Drew. Chris, from Menace to Sports, Juck on Bucks regular, popping in to say hello to us today. Chris, how we doing, buddy?
Oh, I'm doing great. How are you?
Great. We've got Dan on record with David Sanders, and he is a go. He says David Sanders is going to be a Buckeye, and we are at about 1:10 now, 5 minutes away before they come on 247. What are your thoughts about Sanders as this recruitment's gone on? Any errors? What are you thinking? How you feeling?
I heard from a couple parents. It's interesting. I heard from a couple parents about a month and a half, 2 months ago. They all felt really, really good about where we were with David Sanders. And obviously, like, when that's the case and when parents are involved kind of in the recruiting process because they want their sons to succeed, it's like, oh, shoot, like that makes me think, okay, like, yeah, like I am all in on it and buying in on it. But honestly, bro, I think that, like, the loudness and the confidence coming out of the Tennessee camp bugs me a little bit. Like, everybody I've talked to, like, now recently, and I don't know if it's one person kind of following a group of sources or if it's just if it is what it is. It definitely feels like the kid's going to Tennessee. Now, I hope I'm wrong because, I mean, if you're Justin Fry, if you're Ohio State, you can't afford to have a class this small. And, all the misses have been, well, yeah, we missed, but we might get David Sanders. Then if you don't get David Sanders, then it makes this whole cycle feel like a little bit of a waste, because the one thing you thought you were going to get with Justin Fry, maybe you didn't get with Stud, was better recruiting. And if you don't get that, then holy smokes, you're looking at a situation where next year the cupboards are going to be pretty bare. You're going to need probably a new quarterback and a new running back to take the place. So, I got some concern. I don't think he's a Buckeye, but I certainly would love to be wrong with this one.
So you're going Tennessee. Just so everybody understands, I want to pull this up. One of our buddies on Twitter did a graph, and he did Jim Bowman, Ed Werner, Stud. And Stud, I think people knock a lot when it comes to recruiting. It's just absolutely incorrect. And the chart kind of shows you here. So what we're looking for on this chart are red. All right, red boxes. Those are 5 stars. Orange, that's high 4 stars. And you can see Stud just littered with the 5 stars, and the orange is the high 4 stars. And if you look at Fry, you don't want yellow and blue. Lots of yellow and blue, no red, and the red is David Sanders. So, he's absolutely been destroyed by Stud, and it's got to be better. I think that Pantoni and Day are going to have to come in here and make a change, because something
isn't that kind of wild though, Juck? Also though, because like Stud was like the old head coach. Like the perception is like the young coach is supposed to be able to really recruit their tails off and get things done. And Justin Fry, in terms of like coaching acumen, is younger, supposed to relate to kids more. So it's kind of weird, man. It's kind of weird.
Do you think there might be an issue and I hate to say this about anybody, but we know that some coaches, like Chip Kelly, for instance, we've known it for a long time. He doesn't like recruiting. He just doesn't like it, and he doesn't put a whole lot of effort in. Didn't put a whole lot of effort into it, and people knew that forever. Could this be a situation like that, Dan?
It can be. I don't know how much I buy into that. I think that Chip's, issues were with more the administrative side of the game. He sure seemed to enjoy being out on the recruiting trail in the spring when he was talking to his quarterbacks out on the West Coast. I mean, he seemed pretty happy doing that. All reports are that when the kids are on campus and that, at the camps, he was really engaged with it. So, maybe, I don't know. It's got to be a group effort though, man. And it's got to come from the top at this point. If there's going to be a change in the strategy at this point, we have to assume that Ryan's okay with the strategy.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you guys have seen, like, there's a write-up about how, like, like Chip a lot of times will go for like the maybe undersized, little not as athletic if they're really, really smart at the O-line thing. I know that's kind of been making its way around Twitter recently. And I do wonder kind of like, Adazio influence versus Chip Kelly influence for Justin Fry. Like what is he looking for? Because there hasn't really been an identity with the Justin Fry offensive lineman that he's went and grabbed. So I don't know. It makes you wonder. I don't think Chip Kelly loves like the new age recruiting, but I think he's good enough at it and understand that that's a big part of his job. And I also think there's less on his plate right now than there was at UCLA because he's really just the OC here. So I think that might make recruiting a little bit more fun, I guess. But it's still been hard for me to make sense of the whole Justin Fry thing just because of how small this class is and the strategy that Juck's kind of talked about a lot with how you recruit linemen. Just doesn't feel like it's really working.
Chris, we've talked a couple times about Carter Lowe. You've seen Carter Lowe in person. You've seen some clips of him. We saw some clips from the Rivals camp recently. I see a lot of improvement already from his film, and a lot of his background. Tell us a little bit about Carter Lowe.
No, I love Carter Lowe. Carter Lowe's a guy that started football really late, guys. Like he was really an AAU hoop guy, freak athlete on the hoop side, and then put the work in, gained some weight. And I went to the game when they played Findlay, dude. And there was a moment, like very rarely do you see a left tackle take over a game. And there was a moment there, like in the third quarter, where it was just every play, we're running to that side, we're gonna push downhill, we're gonna get it going, and he really took over the game. I talked to his OC. His OC told me like this is one of the most talented kids we've seen come here, and he doesn't realize how strong he is yet. And once he figures that out, it's gonna be really curtains for a lot of these defensive ends. Oh, the littles.
Hey, hold on, let me see if she does this. Mila, OH.
Hey!
Let's go. Love
that guest appearance.
So no, I'm a big Carter Lowe guy. I think that he could play left tackle if you need him to. I think that if you're Justin Fry, if you don't land a left tackle, your job is to get Carter Lowe ready for the left side. But no, I like Carter Lowe a lot, and I'm excited to get eyes on him again this year, later on in the year.
And how do you feel about the line this year? Dan and I are pretty bullish that this offensive line is good. He's saying Joe Moore Award finalist. I'm thinking I'm right almost there. What are you thinking as far as the performance of this line?
It's funny because it's like, the Justin Fry recruiting, like, yeah, this, that, and, talk about firing him. I can't get behind that because this is going to be the second best offensive line in all college football. And I feel pretty comfortable standing on that. And I'll stand on that and pound the table. I think that this is going to be a really, really good offensive line. I think I know a lot of people got frustrated with how they looked last year, but I mean, I hate to do this, but if you look at how some of the other lines stacked up against Michigan, Ohio State was the best. And like if you look at Bama's line, they had impact players all over it, but Bama's line did not block that Michigan defensive front as well as Ohio State did. I think this offensive line is going to be top 2 in the country. I think the only line that I project to be better is going to be that UGA offensive line.
They're nasty. Nasty. Yeah.
Real quick, guys. We just got a message. From JR. He said that they put some Tennessee gear up on Sanders' website, but now it's down again. I just looked at it. It's not there. He's there. He's on 24/7 right now. Hey, I did see a little Easter egg in those pine trees at the end of his decision video. I swear I saw a Buckeye leaf back there in those pine trees.
Dan believes in it. Man. Talk to me, guys. What's going on?
I'm trying to add this, buddy. Sorry.
No. You're good. It's a Saturday show. It's really laid back. It's like like when you see your classmates from school on a Saturday. Say, oh guys, what's up? Like
I do think that Tennessee confidence, Chris, that you were talking about, it's kind of like I think they just
North Carolina
gonna watch this
season protecting Michigan commitment.
Oh yeah, there it is.
Jaden David, who threw for more than 37.
Juck, do we want to get the rest of the guys up here?
All signs are
Hold on.
That's not what I see on my screen on my phone though.
Make that announcement with us.
You go to Instagram
on HQ. Let's bring in the director of scouting for 24/7 Sports. We've got Andrew Ivins checking in with us. All right, Andrew. So the crystal ball prediction, 100% in favor of Tennessee here, but just bring us up to speed here.
It's a lot of
Why
Tennessee excitement,
for
man.
Sanders?
Well, I think if you look at David Sanders in that tape, right, he is a very athletic offensive lineman, and I think he's kind of built to play in a spread attack. And you think about Josh Heupel, what he's been able to do in Tennessee since he arrived there. They want to
built
spread
to
you
play
out.
in a
They want to
spread
throw the
attack.
football. And to me,
I think that
David
kid's good enough to
Sanders,
play
he
in
looks
any
like the
offense. I don't think a spread
ideal fit
attack
to
is.
protect the blind side of Nico Iamaleava or George McIntyre, who's committed to Tennessee, or Faison Brandon in the 2026 cycle. So Tennessee has been in on this recruitment from the jump. David Sanders is a kid that we've been tracking for well over.
I'm watching the Instagram thing. It's live.
Yeah, that doesn't even look like what I got on my phone, whatever I
Yeah.
had up there. So you
looks
got
like
it
he's
on,
got looks like he's got Nebraska in the middle of the table, Tennessee to the right, Ohio State to his left, and Georgia on the far left, as far as hats go.
All right. I'm going to bring on now our buddy Devin. Devin, Ohio 7715. You guys know him. Just started a podcast recently with our buddy Mello, another guy you guys have probably seen forever in the chats. And they started a podcast called Buckeye Boyz that is airing now on the OHIO podcast channel. And I'm going to bring him up with us right now. Dev, how we doing, buddy?
Good. How y'all doing today, fellas?
Good, bro. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, man. Thanks
your
for having me.
official prediction, you said the other day you were going with Tennessee. What are you thinking now?
Man, I'm still holding with that. I don't want to. Nothing in me wants to be right with what I'm saying, but dude, just with all the tea leaves that you're reading into, and so mine. I've said this before any crystal balls were ever put out. We all know there's crystal balls. They're pretty much a joke. It's just people guessing, man. But for me, things that he's said, the amount of times he's visited there, just for me, kind of is what made me lean towards Tennessee.
Yeah. I see
Yeah.
him talking here. Dan, do you?
Yeah,
seeing
I've
him
got the
talking?
same thing. He's talking.
Yeah, he's
You
about
think
to
that
pick
video?
it
You
now.
think that video would have been enough, man? Just put on a hat.
This feed's choppy as hell, man. The 24/7 feed's really choppy, but he's about to announce any second here, guys.
His
Man.
Instagram live feed is clean. The comments in here are hilarious, man. Somebody just predicted he was going to Toledo. I don't see any Akron Zip predictions for you and Chris there, though.
Come on.
Chris, how was that victory lap the other day with the August 15th, 2023 comment? Oh, can't hear you.
It felt good.
Yeah, it should.
It felt good. Well, but I knew it was true the whole time.
Hey, let me ask you all this. When Sanders makes his decision, do you think he sticks with that decision signing day?
I do.
I do as well. I've thought that from the beginning. They just seem like, they were doing their full due diligence ahead of time.
Right.
And once they make this decision, it's done. And David Sanders, now tears. I think he's about to announce, guys. Never mind. He's talking to his granny. He loves his granny.
Mhm.
Good for that kid. Loves granny.
Trying to see if I can peek a little bit of red underneath that white Nike Tech.
Yeah, dude.
Man, my one granny was a mean woman.
Come on, just do something different and pick
And-
Ohio State.
Yeah.
It's been a long time since we've had a surprise, guys, on a day
Yeah,
like
come on,
this. You know what I
man.
mean?
Oh, this 247 feed sucks.
Yeah.
It does.
I'm on his personal Instagram page.
So
he's got a live going on Instagram.
Out of 4,000 votes on YouTube, 60% think he's going to Tennessee.
Dang, Ohio State's not even running second on those votes. They're
No,
running
dude,
third.
Nebraska is.
Nebraska's second.
Yeah.
Crazy, dude. That's because all the Ohio State fans are watching this feed. They need to get over there and vote, man. No, just joking. Don't do that.
Any as we're waiting for this, any intel on the scrimmage today?
Oh, not yet, but I did just have to get a call. Can I throw JR's got the feed up?
Yeah, throw it
up. Can I bring him up too?
Yeah.
5's a lot, but we'll run it.
If you need me to drop, let me know, guys.
No, it's up on screen now.
There you go.
I'm gonna hide this comment just so we can see all our faces. What's up, JR?
JR, what's up, buddy?
What up, boys?
Thanks for getting this feed for us.
Yeah, no problem. 24/7 love is trash.
Yeah.
I'm okay after the games. You are the smartest girl in the whole entire world, and I will always keep that smile on your face wherever I look you. And to my oldest and younger sisters,
Hey man, I love it. I love this kind of thing. I'm just surprised by how long the speech is, but I love it.
I am so proud of you and your accomplishments.
Listen, I love my grandma too, so give the man his time.
Hey, it's better than Decorian Moore's.
I was about to say the same thing.
Definitely building the suspense, huh?
So Dev, Milo made the drive up from Atlanta. That's about 3.5 hours from Gwinnett.
His daughter had a soccer tournament there anyway. So
okay, cool.
yeah,
very cool.
Yeah, he's there right now. He's behind the camera.
Yeah, when I lived in Atlanta, I had to travel up to Charlotte for work quite a bit for a while.
Yeah,
it's an easy drive.
He's been there since like noon.
I'll be honest, I'm not a tomboy hater, but he looks really out of place on this. Like, you got the whole family there, and then it's just
What's
his
he
chair.
doing? Oh, he's ready for an interview. Okay.
It reminds me of that old basketball show. What was it called? The White Shadow? You guys remember? Am I the only one that remembers that show?
I don't
know that
You
one,
got to
Dan.
remember the White Shadow.
I've never heard of the White Shadow.
Oh, you got to Google it, man.
Hey, does Tom Loy have a crystal ball in?
No.
Yes.
Oh, does
He
he?
does.
Yeah, he crystal balled. Or no, he didn't. No, it was that girl on 247. I
Yeah.
don't even know her name.
Yeah, to Tom Loy's credit, knowing that he was going to be
Hey.
doing this, not to put a crystal ball in was the anti-Wilfong thing to do.
Yeah, that's where I was leaning at.
Bro, the greats in the comment saying wrap it up. Good Lord, man. Hey.
He said he saw Trey McNutt, or not Trey McNutt, Decorian Moores, and said, "Hold my beer."
Bro,
Yeah.
hold my juice.
I mean, that thing was just dreadful. Those comments were hilarious.
Hey, this is just the beginning. He's going to go outside to officially announce where he's going.
No, he's not. For real?
No.
Oh, the Corey Moore.
Gender reveal.
I will always try to do the best, and I truly say I got that mindset for you and what you have taught me.
Everybody always does the hats. I'm waiting for one of these days that somebody has like 3 cars in front of them that have like the colors of the schools, and they get in the car and drive away or whatever. You know,
That's real NIL era. Like each
Yeah.
school send your best car.
exactly.
All right, here we go.
Mama, I love you so much. You're the best mom anyone can ask for.
He said, "Stop edging us." These comments are so wild.
You love your family is unconditional, and you would do more for us.
Oh, the chat's really pumping up him not picking Ohio State.
Oh, you should have seen the 24/7 chat. They were-
I saw.
Hurry up, bruh.
I'm watching the 247 chat on my phone.
Oh, yeah, the 247 chat
It's
is
nuts.
unhinged.
The best mom you can be. You have done an extremely good job.
Dago's funny as heck.
Such great memories. Missing you is
Yeah, he is.
because you're my best friend, my mom, literally everything I ask for.
All right, I don't know if I want this kid anymore if he's going to cry this much.
Hello, Dan. We
Ryan.
absolutely want the kid.
You raised a great good
David Armstrong. I'm gonna be 70 when he commits.
He's starting to seem more like a Michigan guy.
choose to continue to strive and be the best son and human I can be. You never put pressure on me for anything. And I know.
There's that pressure theme again.
Okay, but this is, I'm just moving with my life. I can't wait for the future.
They said Sharon Moore vibes. Chill out, gang.
Somebody in the chat said if I was about to get $2 million, I'd cry too.
I just want to let you know you're getting a strong, hardworking individual. I will put my best foot forward each and every day. I will be ready to lead from day one. And this has been a dream of mine as a little kid to play Division I football. So for that, I will always put my all into it. I cannot wait to get on campus and win a lot of games, and most importantly, host the national championship trophy.
Can't be Tennessee then.
And with that being said,
Oh,
for the
shoot,
next
man.
3 4 years, I'll be committed to the University of Tennessee.
That's the shirt. That's the shirt that was on the website. Everybody go buy your Tennessee gear on the David Sanders website.
There it is.
You put that shirt on the website?
Yeah.
That was the shirt. Yeah, somebody commented on the 24/7 Twitter.
It's got to be some type of violation. Let's get him.
Hey boys, Chuck, I might jump in again later. I got to jet. My family's getting ready to hit the road. I got to say goodbye. Thanks for having me, brother. See you guys.
See you, Dan.
All right, JR, get that off there. Well, there we have it, folks. Tennessee is the big winner. The Vols got him, and hey, good for them. Josh Heupel, been doing really good with quarterbacks. Now he's doing good with offensive linemen. You know, you look at Nico, you look at George McIntyre. They got Faison Brandon committed in the next cycle. I mean, doing really well. And we talk about Tennessee, take shots at Tennessee. You know, obviously they're nowhere near the level of Ohio State, but they're certainly coming up in the world under Heupel. They did hit, after that Bama game, what were they? They got up to number 2 or number 1 a couple years back after they beat Bama. I mean, he's got them on the cusp, and I wouldn't be surprised if they were a playoff team at the end of this year. I really wouldn't be.
Yeah, it's a big get for them. Not a big shocker. You know, I miss the days where Ohio State would get the shockers in their favor, but I mean, you want to just say, okay, what's the next plan? Like, what's the plan of attack? But that's a huge get for Tennessee, and it's we've known they've had deep pockets, but Heupel's done a good job with the relationships, and they've stayed relentless. So shout out to Tennessee for landing probably, I mean, maybe the most important prospect in this class for Ohio State, if you look at like position of need. So never feels good when you miss out on one, but the fact that all those crystal balls were in for Tennessee makes it sting a lot less, I guess.
Yeah. I want to play you guys something real quick.
As of right now, I'm still locked in with USC. That's still where my home is, and taking business is kind of a part of the process. And I was gonna go see what's going on everywhere else, but I'm still USC right now.
So for those who don't know, that is Julian Lewis. Julian has been committed to USC for quite a long time, and he's been flirting with Auburn, with Colorado, Indiana. Mm-hmm. Everybody thinks he's going to eventually flip out of his USC commitment. And I watched that this morning. Number one, I'm still committed to USC right now. Taking visits is part of the process. And you look at how you want your quarterback to be, recruiting the class, spearheading the effort. And this is a disaster, man. That is a disaster for Lincoln Riley and USC. And it just makes me appreciate Tavian St. Clair so much more. He's out there trying to win David Sanders over. And honestly, that's a joke, dude. You can't do that when you're the quarterback of a class. Get out of the class and let them move on, right? Or, or get all the way in. That bothers me.
Did you hear the quote that he had about Ryan Montgomery when Ryan committed to Georgia?
No.
It was something about, Georgia's got their guy now, so I'm not going to focus on them anymore. It's like, whoa, like you've been committed to USC this whole time. Like you don't get to comment on what Georgia's getting their guy. I know you're from the state. I know you're flirting with them, but it's like for you to make a comment about another school landed their guy, like it's whatever. It's like, well, you're committed to USC, don't they have their guy? So. I did. Did you watch him last night? They played on ESPN.
I did not.
He had 3 early touchdowns. Looked pretty good. It rained a lot in that game. They almost let They almost let that game slip away or get a little weird, but he definitely looks the part. But I do think Tavian St. Clair's a better prospect, and I'd rather have Tavian St. Clair in the class because of how he recruits and the style of just kind of being all about his program.
Yeah, that is one of the positive things. Like and in these moments, right? David Sanders goes somewhere else, but like on the top of my note sheet, right? I kind of knew the dude was going to I felt like he was going to Tennessee. I have Carter Lowe is a beast, right?
Yeah.
So you go from, hey, dude, we just lost David Sanders, but this is Ohio State, man. It's not the end of the world. We got Carter Lowe, we got Jake Cook. They're very good prospects. Do we need more? 100%, man. Something's got to change with with O-line recruiting at Ohio State. We all know that. We can all come up with all these numbers. I might even get to that here in a minute. But, dude, look at the rest of the class we got. Tavian St. Clair, Devin Sanchez. Dude, we are stacked and loaded. It could be way worse. I mean,
I hear you. I hear you. I hear you. It could be way worse, but this is not good enough. Like no. How you slice it, not good enough. Like the fact that we are this late in the cycle and you can't field a line is ridiculous. You know you're going to lose after this year. Like I get it. It's Ohio State. We got to hold the recruiting class to that standard. It's just not good enough. And
look at what Larry's doing too. Like Larry, like he's getting it done, right, Chris? Like you approve what Larry's doing on the D line, but we can't do it on the O line. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but like
no, you're right. It's just like the one thing that could cripple a team is having a terrible offensive line. And like if you don't have the talent in the cupboards, it'll cripple a team. Like I don't care how good you are outside. I don't care how good you are quarterback. I've watched some of the really good quarterbacks get absolutely ruined and some defenses be out there for a long, long time, like we saw in the Missouri game because we couldn't block or get anything done up front. So, I mean, yes, it's a great class, but it still has a really, really glaring issue. And honestly, I'd rather take a B+ level class everywhere else if it meant we got a B- level offensive line recruiting class. And I guess that's my frustration right now. Now, am I surprised Sanders went to Tennessee? No. My bigger issue is there should be way more offers out there. We should take at least more project kids. And if we're going to star chase, cool, got it. Take the Ohio kids and the Midwest guys all in the meantime, because we've seen some really good offensive lines built just through and through in the Midwest. Like, I don't need you to go get me 3 5-stars every year, but go get me some big project kids from the Midwest and go make it shake. Transfer portal, cool. I got you 79, but you cannot keep relying on the transfer portal to plug a whole offensive line. So great class. Yeah. Could it be worse? Yeah. Did it need to be better? Abso-freaking-lutely.
It's not.
Well, and sorry, Jack. I've yet to hear an actual argument saying that, like, oh, we're good with Justin Fry. Like, there is no argument out there. People say transfer portal. Jucky went after it earlier. Like, the transfer portal is not a viable option right now, especially with somebody who's struggling in recruiting. Like, yeah, if Justin Fry struggles in development, yeah, the transfer portal is an option because you can go get guys who are ready made. Most of the guys that are in the transfer portal that are ready made, you got 30, 40, 50 schools going after them. Like, I don't think people understand how many schools are going after these guys who are ready made. And so you're asking Justin Fry, instead of battling with Tennessee down the stretch for David Sanders, you're asking him to go up against 20, 30, 40 schools in a matter of a month, 2 months, like sometimes not even that long. And so you're asking Justin Fry to go in there and recruit these guys out of the transfer portal. It's not good. And if you want to say Justin Fry's a good developer, which we can talk about that in a minute, I think that he's done a good job of developing guys. But at the same time, how much credit do we give Justin Fry for developing an offensive line when now you have the analysts who are allowed to help right now too? So you have Tim Drevno there. Is it Tim Drevno that's actually developing these guys and putting together a good offensive line? Is it Chip Kelly's scheme? Like, we have a whole bunch of other stuff going on here that makes you realize.
Let me push back a little bit.
Go ahead.
I don't want to do that. I do think this offensive line last year was really good. I know that they had some blunders early, but near the end of the year, like, they blocked Michigan up front better than everybody else. I think Justin Fry is a good offensive line coach and a good developer. I think he gets that unit ready. I think that I don't want to loop in that with that. Like, I know Drevno does a good job, and I expect him to do a good job, and I expect the unit to get better. I'll give Justin Fry credit for the offensive line, and I don't want that to be a part of the eval, because listen, he's not getting fired also additionally. So it's like the recruiting thing, absolutely. I think he's a good developer. I mean, I think the fact that Simmons is going to be likely an end of the first rounder. Look, got it. Flowers. My issue is more recruiting. I think that I think he deserves flowers in terms of development from what that offensive line started off against Indiana and how they ended the year against Michigan. I think huge improvement.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, even if he is a really good developer, which I tend to believe he is a good developer, I'm just saying there's an argument for him not being. I'm not saying that I 100% believe that, but I could see somebody having a bit of that, argument there. However, I agree with you too, Chris. But at the end of the day, like, developing doesn't help you in the transfer portal. How many guys do you get them right after their freshman year out of the transfer portal? We got Josh Simmons young out of the transfer portal. That doesn't happen all the time. You don't get guys like that. And it was during the spring window too, right? Like to bring in a guy after that, like that, it doesn't happen very often. So like, yeah, the transfer portal is an option, but if you look at like chances and likelihood of it's going to happen, you don't put $10,000 on, a 10,000 odds Heisman candidate. You just don't do it. You might sprinkle a little bit in there and say, oh, if we can get it, that'd be great. But you don't say, oh, we can get an entire recruiting class out of the transfer portal. So I'm with you, Juck. I don't want to see Justin Fry get fired. I think he can develop guys. I think he can bring them in. But at this point, I'm better with Justin Fry bringing in a class of 4, 5, 6 3-stars rather than going out there and getting, going after all the 5-stars for a 3-4 man class, because I think you have a better chance of developing guys who are lower rated if you have more of them rather than the higher rated guys. So, which, I mean, at the end of the day, the thing that sucks the most about this is like what Devin was saying. Like, Carter Lowe is an awesome prospect. I mean, Justin Fry gets flowers for getting Carter Lowe. Yeah. But if that's your only... And Jake Cook too, but Jake Cook was going to commit no matter who was the offensive line coach. Like, he was all you had to do was say, "Here's a scholarship." Jake Cook was coming. I mean, there wasn't anything special there that I know of that Fry did. Maybe you guys can tell me different. There wasn't anything super special Fry did there to make Cook come in. So like, he gets flowers for Carter Lowe, and I hate that he gets caught up in this discussion because people say like, oh, you hate Carter Lowe and you don't think he's any good. No, I do think he's good. He's just only one man. Like, he's only one recruit, and he's like, you need to have more than that. There's 5 guys in the offensive line. Chances are somebody's going to get hurt in the season. You need 6 or 7. Like,
and we're going to lose the whole offensive line after this year.
Most likely, a lot of maybe not Tegra or Hinsman, whichever one starts. Probably Tegra, but
Tegra started.
A lot of the folks have the opinion that quit going after the big guys, focus on home. And to JR's point about going after the just bringing in the 3-stars that you can develop if you're a good developer. And I just want to make it clear for everybody that, there wasn't a ton of just star chasing here. There were a lot of lower end 4-star prospects along the process here that he was after. He lost out on all of them too. So it wasn't just losing out on top tier prospects here. There was plenty of lower rated 4-stars and 3-star guys that were lost out on. I think what irritated me almost as much as anything in this cycle was turning away Andrew Stargell, who Justin Fry went down to Georgia, did his own personal evaluation on a 3-star center in Andrew Stargell. Andrew Stargell came up for an official, wanted to commit to Ohio State. Jake Cook gets his offer. Jake Cook gets pigeonholed into the center position when he doesn't need to be. Louisville wanted him as a guard. He's 6'5". We see Carson Hinsman now switching from center to guard. Those interior guys, they switch him around all the time. But because Jake Cook was thought to be the center of the class, he let Stargell walk. And now you look at that at this point, he let Stargell walk. At the time, you still had guys on the board like Zaire Addison. You still had Mario Nash. You still had Caden Stray. Like, there was other guys on the board. Now you've missed out on them all. And you let Stargell walk.
Yeah.
That could be another really solid guy in this class.
Right. And also, like, offensive linemen, like pigeonholing guys who are 18 who are going
to ridiculous.
Grow 2 inches before they ever play for your school and probably gain 40 pounds is the dumbest thing I think I've ever seen. Stop pigeonholing guys. I mean, shoot, Joe Alt was freaking playing tight end and was getting offers out there. So it's like,
I do want to.
It's so frustrating, Jack. I know you and I probably think the same on that because we watch a lot of the Ohio guys, but it's like,
Oh, and you know who else thinks the same is Bentley. Bentley thinks the same thing. Recruit guys because of their hard work and their effort and their desire to play. Like, so what if a guy's 6'3"? They're gonna grow, like you said, Chris. My gosh,
that tweet from Charles Bentley the other day that you're referencing, that was 100% in reference to not just overall philosophy, but it had a lot to do with Will Conroy of the class of 2026, who is slightly on the shorter side, and he's very irritated that he's not being heavily pursued. And the reason, guys, if anybody knows, like they're not, the Buckeyes are not in Will Conroy's top 5, thought to be one of the top 4 linemen in Ohio out of St. Ignatius. Buckeyes aren't in his top 5. And the reason they're on his top 5, they're not pushing hard. They're just taking a wait and see approach, even though he has an offer. And, it's a strategical error to me. You want to get those top 4 linemen in Ohio every year at Ohio State, particularly now that you've gone from 85 to 105 scholarships. That's your bread and butter right there. That's how you fill out that remainder of those roster spots with guys that are going to stick in the program, stay around a long time, and be glue guys that understand right from the rip that they're not going to really get their shot till year 3 or year 4 in the program, and they're sticking around, glue guys, program guys, and not going to leave after 2 years because they came in as a highly rated 4-star and they expect to play in year 2. Those are like that's exactly the kind of guy, the Adam Guthries, the Will Conroys. That's what you need. And these are guys that are heavily recruited all over the country. Inexcusable stuff. But I do want to answer Mama Sanchez's question here. So my sponsor, Columbus Apparel, shout out Columbus Apparel. I talked to them about this, and what she's talking about is there was the Ohio State sweatshirt on David Sanders' site. So I sent him that gear, and I asked him to explain this to me. Obviously, to print up a bunch of Ohio State sweatshirts, if you're not going to choose Ohio State, would be unbelievably expensive and ridiculous because you're going to have to trash them, or some kid in China is going to be wearing them next week. But what he said was, and he could tell just by looking at it, that was a style called print on demand, which is a very trashy style. And the company that did that likely came out with all this stuff. They picked pictures offline, sent it to him, and he just basically signs off, and they keep everything in their warehouse. You send the order in through that website. They get the order. They print it on demand, and it's like a patch, and it feels like a plastic trash bag on top of the sweatshirt. And there's no screen printing. There's no overstock of sweatshirts that they have to go through. It's all blanks. So that's the answer to why that was potentially on there.
It's still up there too.
Is it still up there?
I got it pulled up right now.
It's gonna be like a weird collector's grail 10 years down the road,
right?
But Juck, I got to jump off. I got the littles in the back that we're
thank you, brother.
Some errands. I appreciate you guys
joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll talk to
later,
you fellas
Chris.
soon.
Have a good one, Katie.
We'll all get on a mic in the future and have a more positive talk about Ohio State.
I love that.
Yeah, peace, fellas.
Later, buddy.
See you.
Later, man.
Hey, so I got to jump back, right? I want to make sure my position is cleared up. You both have said you do not want Fry fired. I hear your reasonings for that. I hear development. I am on the fire Fry train. I'm on that train. I want him gone after this year. I think what he has done is recruiting so far, like what he has done already deserves to be fired. Like after this year, obviously you can't do it in the middle of the year, but from 2019 to 2021, dude, 7 top 300 linemen were brought into Ohio State. Since Fry has been here, there's only been 3. You know what I mean? And the development aspect of it, like the importance of that development in football, 100% huge. It's up there near the top of the list, but the NCAA changed the rule now. You can bring an analyst can go coach on the field, right? So therefore, and also Day said, recruiting, number one thing. When we were looking for a running backs coach, he said, recruiting is the number one thing I want, right? So therefore, right, how much of Fry's development can you use for the argument not to fire him, right? It's the recruiting that's number one. So that's the train I'm on, and I have several things. So let's use the D-line for a second, right? The D-line makes up 18% of the starting players on the field, right? 4 of them out of 22. The offensive line makes up 24% of the starters on the roster. I went back and I averaged all the offers, right, that these units have made. In the past 3 years, the D-line has consisted of 20% of the total offers Ohio State has made. That percentage is greater than the percentage it requires for them to fill the starting roster.
Correct.
The Ohio State, the O-line offers that requires 24% of the starting roster is 15%. In the past 3 years, of the total offers. Now, I know all the arguments you're going to make. Well, who's on the roster now? All this, all that. But that's just another number, right, to show you that since Fry has been here, right? So this goes back to UCLA. And there was a year in UCLA where Fry sent out 10 O-line offers. The last year he was there, he sent out 14. You know what I mean? So this isn't something new for Fry. He's been doing this. This has been his strategy, and it's never changed. That's the problem, man. He's been doing the same thing over and over again, and he keeps getting the same results. So something has to change, dude. It has to change. Like,
well,
he's the only one in the country doing it.
Let's I'm going to play devil's advocate for a second, because for the record, I don't necessarily disagree with much of what you're saying.
Yeah.
However, when we say we keep getting the same results, like, I mean, didn't he have top 5 rushing attacks at UCLA? So are we going to
I think PFF had UCLA's offensive line as like one of the top 3 in the nation.
So I'm speaking of recruiting. That's right. Everything I just said was recruiting.
But so that's the one thing about the O-line that I've always said is what ultimately is going to be most important when it comes to evaluating the O-line. Is it going to be the results on the field, or is it going to be recruiting? Because I think more so than any position on the entire team, the offensive line, it's different, right? I've always said that it's the sum of the parts are better than any one part, more so than any other unit on the team. So where do we cut them some slack because of the improvement that we saw and the development that we saw and what we're hearing we're going to see this year? Or is it just about the star ratings?
This is 100%. If you come out and have an excellent line this year, I'm not concerned with this stuff for a while, but we can't ignore if this ends up a 2-man offensive line class, it absolutely can't be ignored because you just don't got enough bodies coming in. And beyond that, we all see the issues here. Like, there's just such an issue. I would feel so much better if we just knew that, from the program, from the top, like, hey, like, we understand this is an issue and we're making some changes. Like, I would feel so much better. I've just got this fear that they're not going to address it and we're going to get the same thing because we're seeing it already in 26. And I don't want to be sitting here with you guys a year from now going over this same topic after just bringing in a 2-man offensive line class. And the things I see, like some of this stuff, like when we talk about Adam Guthrie and things like that, or turning away stars, or like some of this is just like such common sense that any of us know. And I'm just like, what went on when you're missing on common sense stuff at the same time? Yeah, I think we're going to have a good line. And we should at Ohio State, no matter what, every year. Yeah, it'll be improvement, and definitely he's going to get props from me for that. I don't want to just sit here and hate on the guy. And I understand where Devin's coming from, saying, he's had enough. You're making $1 million a year. You should be able to both put out an offensive line and recruit well. But the point is, if he's bringing out a good offensive line, that's great. How long is that sustainable when you're not bringing in the pieces to continue to cook the good meal year after year? At some point, there's going to be a breakdown. And, if we're going to look and spot that, they obviously are spotting that at the program too. But this brings up an interesting question. First, I want to get to Brian's question here. Brian, our buddy here says, I know we are all confused by Fry's recruiting strategy, but any ideas why this has been his approach? Would love your all's thought on what seems to be going on, because it seems so far off from all the other positions. And like Devin said, Brian, it is. When we look at the position numbers, how many you need to field of each position versus the offers, he's consistently lower than every other position. And why would that be his strategy? I cannot figure out why. But we know initially that he said, according to Jeremy Birmingham, who asked the question to the program, that he wanted to cast a small net because he felt like getting a stronger relationship with that smaller net of guys, and this has always been his strategy, would get him better results in the end. And the issue that I have is when it's clear that that's not working, because he admitted it wasn't working when he sent out a flurry of offers in June. He admitted it wasn't working by that, right? Just that alone, that in 2026, we're seeing the same thing repeat itself. So you need to pivot off the strategy. And whether he needs to be told to do that or not, something's got to give here, because if we're going to go into the next year's class and everybody thinks that there's a big reprieve coming with the class of 2026 in Ohio, these great players, Maxwell Riley, Sam Greer, Adam Guthrie, Will Conroy. Well, I just told you Will Conroy went not in his top 5. Adam Guthrie doesn't have an offer, but he's got one from Texas, Texas A&M, Florida, Miami, and he's irritated and insulted, to be quite honest, that Ohio State hasn't reached out and offered him. He went and camped. He did everything he needed to do. The guy's 6'7", just turned 16, 6'7", 290, turned 16 2 months ago. You telling me you got no room on your team for that kid, and you're bringing in a 2-man offensive line class? Are you kidding me? Max Riley, it looks good right now. Sam Greer, 6'8", 290. Sam Greer, this is going to come down to a traditional Ohio State, Michigan recruitment. Very interested in Michigan, and the staff at Hoban, also a relationship with them. So you could potentially come out of this with just 2 of those 4 Ohio guys. In addition to that, man, the offers are, what were the numbers, Dev, in 2026?
2026, he's got 16 offers out.
And we're at
compared to like 30, 40
for Georgia
Bama.
and 40 for Bama.
Oh, dude. And just so we're all clear, yeah, that number there, I did 15 teams. We are the closest team to us is 10 offers more than us. That's 15 teams. I went through way more than that.
Wait a
minute. Then I narrowed it down to 15.
15 teams, and the lowest of those 15 is still 10 more than us. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, the ones that I did. Yeah.
That's insanity.
So, again, and Dan, before you came on, my main thing behind this, right? 2 things. Day stated recruiting is number 1, right? So we had that before. Then the NCAA made a rule that all the coaches can develop. So that is my main reasoning behind how I feel Fry has now deserved to be let go from the team or transitioned. Pay him $1 million to be an analyst. Hire one of your 10 countable coaches that can recruit. Nobody else can recruit. Fry is the only one that can recruit. So Day said that. The NCAA did that. So everything you guys say about the development, I feel you. I agree with you. I see you. Where I'm at right now has nothing to do with losing David Sanders. Nothing to do with losing Josh Petty. Has nothing to do with star rankings. Hear me out. It honestly really doesn't. It has the fact to do with the number of offers that goes out does not yield the results that Ohio State needs to even fill the room numbers wise. We're down to there. And that's not even an argument about how talented are these guys coming in. The 3 stars, yeah, the O-line position, a 3-star can get recruited in the first round. We all know that. But more often than not, 5 stars get recruited or get, to the NFL more than the 3 stars do. But even if you negate that argument, where I'm at is the fact that, the numbers thing, he's been doing it since UCLA. It's nothing new, right? Now, his development side, I hear you guys. I agree with you. UCLA, top 5 rushing attack with Chip Kelly's scheme and all that. We're about to see the same thing here. The O-line is going to be phenomenal this year. Chip Kelly's scheme, the experience on the O-line, the leadership coming back from the seniors, all that. Tim Drevno in there now. I've heard a lot of reports that Tim Drevno looks like the O-line coach out there now. Looks like he's the one taking charge of things. Now, that's somebody else's perspective. But my main thing is strictly recruiting, because Day said recruiting's number 1, and now all the coaches can develop. So, that's where I stand with it.
I'm 100% on board with you with the numbers, man, and that needs to change. Juck, can we talk about this narrative that seem to exist only in Ohio, that we can't extend an offer to an Ohio kid unless we're ready to accept it? Yes. It drives me nuts. All these other schools are sending out uncommittable offers.
Yes.
Right? They're like, hey, listen, we like you. We think you can be a value add for our program. We think that you can play here based on what we see now, but you're 16 and we need to see another year. So we're going to make you an offer to let you know that we want you, but we also need to see you develop over the next 12 to 18 months before that's solid. Why is that an issue in Ohio only? What is the deal with? I've got someone messaging me, Sean, telling me that Ohio coaches, high school coaches, will lose their mind if we make an offer, committable or not, and rescind it. I'm not saying rescind committable offers. Committable offer, you accept that if it's committable. But what is wrong with a non-committable offer that says, hey, we really like you, but we need to see a little bit more before we're ready to accept this? What's the deal with that in Ohio?
Traditionally, there's no such thing as a non-committable offer to an Ohio prospect. If you offer an Ohio prospect, that's it. If he says yes, you're taking him. That's just always been the mindset from Ohio State to the high school coaches, and that Ohio High School Coaches Association, pretty powerful. And if you screw one over, you get them mad at you, and the fear is that they'll turn on you. But it's a very outdated way of thinking, because let's be honest, we're seeing now a totally different era of Ohio prospect. They're much more apt to leave the state now. They're all national recruits. They've grown up watching everybody put out their list with all their teams. This is what they think they should do, and we're seeing many more of them leave. And with that being the case, Ohio State needs to now do what's best for Ohio State. And, if you're going to piss off or irritate, potentially offering a guy, but let's be honest, this happens, right? Like I just told you, Will Conroy, he has an offer since January, but they're not really showing much interest. Now, if Will Conroy tried to say, hey, I want to commit tomorrow, would they take it? I think so. But, he doesn't feel like they're showing him much interest. So that's what it is. But
did Fry even make that offer, though? Like, Ryan Day has been going out there offering offensive linemen to try to fix up. Like, I think that's some of the stuff that, like, not a lot of people understand. Like, Fry is super low on these offers. Fry isn't even making all of these offers. So, like, if we had it Fry's way, Fry would probably have, 12 offers out there in the 2026 class right now? Like, what in the world are we doing that you can't even offer these kids? And then how much egg is on your face when Ryan Day goes out and offers Will Conroy, and then after he offers him, Justin Fry's like, well, I'm not going to talk to him. I'm not going to speak to him. Well, then you piss off Bentley and all the other coaches because, hey, this kid got an offer, but your offensive line coach won't even talk to the kid. So, like, yes, I get the coach's thought there of, like, we don't like it if you don't offer our kid, but how many coaches are you pissing off if you do offer and then Justin Fry doesn't go after him, or you don't offer him like Guthrie, like you don't even offer them? Like, doesn't that piss off his coach? The guy's 6'7", has a great size. I forget his weight, but I know his weight is great. Like,
he's up to 293, told me.
293. He's fine. Like, what in the world are we doing here?
16 years old.
Like, you're going to piss off coaches by offering them and then not taking them, but you're also going to piss off coaches by just not by not offering them at all. So, like, I don't get it. Sorry. Maybe I said too much there, but
the only thing that I can make it make sense to me as to why this happens is the word arrogance, right? I don't know. Even the numbers thing, the fact that Fry hasn't changed his numbers his whole time, and the rest of college football makes all these offers, and Fry's sitting there all alone by himself at Ohio State putting out 10 offers at UCLA. The rest of the big boys, all of them doing more offers. And then, yeah, Dan, I heard you say it on your show. I heard JR say it, right, about this Ohio thing. Dude, it is so aggravating. So if there's an Ohio player in the top 300 now, right, they are no longer Ohio players. They are national players. They need to be treated like they are national prospects, which means you need to offer them. And then we get into this thing of, did he get offered late or did he not? Well, I got news for you. If another team offers them, if Alabama offers, or if Texas offers Adam Guthrie before Ohio State, you are now late. Texas got there first. They offered him first. This is big boy football. Offer him. Do what Urban Meyer did. Offer him. Tell him, hey, this is contingent on your senior year film and your grades. This is big boy football, dude. Treat it like big boy football. Offer it and let him know, hey, dude, you got to step your game up your senior year. You got to make sure you're doing good in the classroom. If you do those things, we will accept your commitment. Like, I don't. It's
you can argue that Texas was late on Adam Guthrie.
Yeah, he already had.
Let alone Ohio State.
That's what I'm saying. I know, bro.
So
I want to formally to Adam Guthrie, on behalf of the fans, we are formally offering you an offer to come to Ohio State.
Hey, man, this kid's a
I
dog.
do not have financial part in this, but yes, I agree.
No, he's a dog. He really is. But I just want to say, like, this is the last show I'm doing where I'm talking about recruiting. This is done after this. So
Same here.
you know, and I even want to turn the page here in a few. If you guys want to have any other thoughts about the offensive line recruiting, we're going to turn the page and move on to another topic.
I do have a prediction for the final class.
Yes.
I do believe, obviously, we're going to keep Lowe and Cook. I do believe that we get McFadden. I think we flip Stargell. And I think we flip Fanuku.
Start over. Say again. I'm sorry. Go over. I was reading this comment. You just
got
said
a
we're going to flip
six-man O-line
Fanuku?
class.
Yeah, I'm making a prediction because my earlier prediction in the show was spot on. I said Sanders was going to Knoxville.
You
So
did.
I'm feeling really good about myself
You
right
said
now.
we're going to flip Fanuku.
100%.
We're going
Yeah,
to flip
I'm making the
Stargell.
call in the class. We're gonna flip Stargell and Fanuku, and then we're gonna get McFadden. That'll be our 5-man class.
Okay.
The only
I
prediction I'll
gotta
make
show
is,
you. I got to show you my last message with Stargell when we hang up.
the only prediction I'll make
I knew
is
that might be I knew that might be sitting out there, but I went with it anyways.
is that one of Nolan Davenport or Jameer Atkins will be in the class. One of those guys will end up being back in the class. That's my only prediction I have for the O-line class.
Listen, man, Nolan or Jameel Atkins is enormous. Like after you just saw, DeJuan Jones, like why are you
huge, dude.
passing on a dude as big as this kid? I mean,
I don't
just
know.
get him in the class. Would Georgia get him in the class?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Georgia would find room for that big dude.
Surprised he's not in Georgia's class based with his measurables.
Honestly, seriously. Eric Boggs of the OHIO podcast says Fry's average as a recruiting is under 100, one of the worst in the country. Let's not sugarcoat this. It's bad and it needs to be addressed by Ryan Day. And that's where I'm at. It just needs to be addressed. Now we know damn well, and unfortunately we didn't hear this till after Tony Alford left from some of the guys on the beat, that Ryan Day had been prodding him for the last couple of years about his recruiting. And I hope that we see the same type of thing go on with Justin Fry, even though we know that they're buddies and obviously much tighter than Ryan Day and Tony Alford were. But I'm sure this is a big topic. You know what I mean? Like there's no way it could not be a big topic between everybody on the staff. Like we've got a big issue here and there's no way around it.
Well, and
All right,
like
guys.
how much are these other, I mean, last thing, just to comment on that, like how much do these other coaches have to be mad about like the lack of recruiting at that position? Like you said, like everybody else in that building has to be able to see this. And Brian Hartline, I mean, it's no secret. Like the NIL dollars were going to the offensive line this year.
Yes.
Meanwhile, Brian Hartline's like, oh, really? I could have went out and got DeCorian Moore. Oh, really? I could have went out and got Vernell Brown. Like, oh yeah, those guys were getting, I mean, I'm not going to go into the weeds of it, but those guys were getting a lot more money. And I was told no. So like, you guys really want to invest in this dude who he can go out there and send out? I mean, that's all the talk that was going out there with the Tennessee people, whether it was true or not, is that, oh, Ohio State made this huge NIL offer. And now Ohio State fans are going to say, oh, well, they had a bigger NIL offer out there for us. I'm not talking like everybody. I'm just saying there will be Ohio State fans that say that. And it's like, that's what Tennessee fans were saying. And that's what they were going to say if they lost out on the recruitment. So like, the NIL was there. Nobody in this situation should be blaming the foundation for what's going on with offensive line recruiting. If that ever comes up, like I'm sorry, but either the person just doesn't know what they're talking about, or they're just looking for an excuse other than Justin Fry. But like at the end of the day, Brian Hartline, Tim Walton, all these guys got to be out there crossing their arms, being like, really, Justin Fry, you couldn't do it. You had all that money. Look at our class, and we don't have any money. Not
The
any money, but
D line did
far
it.
less money. D-line did it. Yeah.
No, it's a really good point. And I honestly, when we talk about Josh Petty, and I said on the show the other day, Josh Petty from Georgia Tech, number one, I didn't think that was a loss, because if a kid is down to Ohio State, Florida State, Georgia Tech, and Stanford, it's somebody who is weighing, it's a different kind of prospect. He's weighing, do I want to go to the football school or do I want to go to the pretty good at football school where I can get this amazing diploma? And maybe he's interested in some certain type of program they have there. So I didn't really feel that was a true L, right? I know recruiting is a zero-sum game. It just didn't feel like a true L to me. But when I found out that the kid got $800,000 a year to go to Georgia Tech, that's double what our highest lineman is making right now. You absolutely cannot. They were never going to pay him that much, nor should they. I wouldn't have wanted that. All that's going to do, you bring in a guy like that who, honestly, good prospect, not a 5-star to me. He just wasn't a 5-star talent to me. 6'4", 250 pounds. That guy needs a couple years of developing, and bringing a guy that needs a couple years of development into Ohio State, making that kind of money, if they would have had to pay that, like, how does that sit with the guys currently on the team? Not well. And we talked about the transfer portal and the amount of guys in the transfer portal at offensive line, which 4-star guys dropped from 40 in 2023 to 12 in 2024. You can't be risking pissing off your guys to pay some 2-year developmental guy to come in. David Sanders, a different story, obviously, but I don't want to hear word one about Ohio State lost out on David Sanders because Tennessee offered him more money. We know that the Buckeye offer was in the stratosphere. They were comparable offers. If he wanted to come to Ohio State, he would have come to Ohio State.
I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't up the offer at the end and we just never heard about it. I mean, NIL is not an excuse in this case at all.
Relationships.
Yeah, this one's an L. This is a straight up L. When we talk about offense or wide receiver, like JR was bringing up. Now, yes, Brian Hartline went and got those relationships cooking with Vernell Brown, with Jamie French, with DeCorian Moore, and in the end, he tried his best, but they weren't going to go high in the NIL dollars, and he made it clear to those guys, this is where we're at, and they were being offered a lot more. So that's not a true loss to me right there. Those are NIL losses. Ohio State wasn't really in for DeCorian Moore. That was Texas and Oregon. They were in big. They were going max deal against each other. Ohio State was not even anywhere in the stratosphere. Brian Hartline was trying to sell, come play for me, come be the best. You'll love Ohio State, and you'll make it down the line. This was different. This was all systems go, NIL department, 100% behind the trenches this year. Definitely 100% behind landing David Sanders. This was not an NIL loss. And yes, the offer from Tennessee, slightly more. There was something in there that was tied to it, but this was not an NIL loss. And I'll not, if anybody thinks it wasn't. Yes, their deal was a little more, but this was about more than that. There's a reason he took so many more visits to Tennessee. And now we can look back with all the dots they connected and see, yeah, it was pretty clear. Now, I wasn't totally buying it, but it is what it is. This was an L.
Let me ask you this. Would the narrative be different? And this kind of ties into what Charles posted the other day. Let's say we were never in on Sanders, and we've got Lowe, a fringe 5-star, and we've got Cook, a good solid 3-star Ohio kid, and then we sprinkled in another 2 Jake Cooks, a high 4-star, and another 4-star. If we were sitting on that class right now, would everybody be losing their mind? Or with it being Ohio State, would they completely forget about all of that and freak out that we just lost out on the number 1 tackle in the country anyways?
I think we'd be looking at a lot of people who don't follow this stuff like us on Twitter who would be losing their minds. And I think those of us who do would have dug into those prospects. And if they were quality prospects, we know that these star rankings, particularly with linemen, are just goofy sometimes.
Oh yeah.
And if you understand that, I think that we would all be pretty happy with the class. And that sucks that you lost out on David Sanders, but you got Carter Lowe, who honestly, we talk about Josh Petty. Carter Lowe to me is a way better prospect than Josh Petty. So with Carter Lowe, I mean, I would feel great if Carter Lowe was the anchor of a class with 3 other guys, one of them being a high 4-star guy and a couple 3-star Ohio guys. I'd feel really good about that. It would obviously suck that we lost out on another out-of-state big-time 5-star. But to me, those are guys that I don't expect an offensive line coach to land, but once every 5 years. He's got to land one eventually. But, the fact that you're in on these guys, on the Brandon Bakers, on the Jordan Seatons, on the David Sanders, and you're coming up the bridesmaid, you're going to hit one once. You're going to hit one sooner or later. And, you're only going to get one once every 5 years. And that's really all you need with one of those guys. You're going to be around for 3 years. So, I get your point, Dan, and I do think there would be a lot of people still with the pitchforks in that scenario, because I think a lot of people are under the assumption that you should be able to land those 5-star out-of-state guys more often. To me, I don't think it's realistic, but once every 5 years.
Oh, and I like you have to look at the offers too. Like, he's offered 2, maybe 3 Ohio, Indiana kids, Pennsylvania kids in this class alone. So like, I know the talent in the Ohio, Michigan, Indiana, Pennsylvania area right now. This class is not the best ever, but I just don't get that argument that people say when it's like, oh, well, most kids from down south stay down south. And it's like, okay, but that's what Justin Fry offered. Like, Justin Fry went out and offered the kids down south. He didn't go to Ohio, Michigan, Penn State and offer many of these developmental guys. And like we said, it took, an arm and a leg for him to offer Jake Cook, who was a guaranteed pretty much. So like, I totally get people saying like, oh, you can't expect, to land a 5-star kid from down south every time. I totally agree. I totally get that. But Justin Fry has to get that too. And so he can't go out and be offering, only guys like David Sanders, Josh Petty, guys like that, Micah DeBose, like even guys out in California like Jackson Lloyd. Like, that would have been a great offer. It happened 3 months earlier because was he there when Chip Kelly offered him? Or Chip Kelly offered him, I think. When he was there. I don't think Fry was there when Kelly offered him. But like, that's my thing. Like, it's not just about like these guys from down south don't come up north. It's the fact that like you got to actually offer the guys from up north if you want those guys.
Dude, I got a quick question for y'all. If you got rid of Fry and took a random analyst, put him in the O-line, the lead O-line recruiting position, how many O-linemen do you think, just like the Ohio State name alone, just the want to play for Ohio State, how many O-linemen do you think they could sign?
Well, to JR's point, and I think this goes, I mean, there's more than just 3 stars in that circle, of Columbus and out, Pennsylvania, Indiana, Michigan. I mean, there's some good linemen. And I think if that was strictly your strategy, to your point, or your question, Devin, I think you could land a whole lot of quality linemen. If that was your strategy, stay close to home like that, and just being the Ohio State brand, and Dan was the director of offensive line recruiting, I think it could go pretty well. I do.
Hey, I'm in the job market. Can we pull that off? Who knows somebody?
Yes, sir.
Eric from the OHIO podcast says he had a podcast and interviewed some folks on the UCLA pod, and they laughed at us picking up Fry.
Mm-hmm.
His recruiting issues have been going on a long time, and everything he accomplished at UCLA was basically chip. But let's get to a couple of these super chats, guys. First off, I got you two guys. Let's get, we got the Scooch. King Chris, what's the point of even trying to get these national 5-stars? Seems to be a waste of time. Again, I just feel like it's something that you can't really count on too often. And I don't think it's really fair of us to count on those too often, but you always want to take your swing. I mean, you are Ohio State. I just don't feel like you need to put all your effort into that. And you certainly should have a lot of backup options in a full class of guys, regardless. And, you make work for those guys on the back end. They're usually going to take a long time to get them in. But I think you could have gotten plenty of Jake Cook caliber prospects in this class if you were really trying. And Joe, thank you so much, Joe. Excellent work, Juck. New to your PC. Not worried about this year's O-line. I am worried about next year's. What is your early projection? Boy, what are you guys thinking about next year's O-line? I mean, Simmons gone, right? Absolutely. We on board with that, guys?
Yeah.
Okay, Fryer. Now, I just found out Fryer's got another year of eligibility left should he choose to use it. I didn't even know that. I thought he was out. But if he makes the improvement that we're hearing he's making, could he be out, or is he going to take advantage of that? that's going to be a big difference on how next year's line looks.
I think if Fryer has the improvement that we think he's going to, I can see he being a top priority to keep with NIL. Like, like the 10 or 12 guys we did this year, because of the we're going to need that anchor. I'm not worried. I'm actually very optimistic for our line next year. You got Hinsman. Hinsman will be back. You got Tegra will be back. Saravold is developing nicely.
Yes.
Ian Moore just lost his black stripe, as a true freshman. And the Armstrong twins, man, especially that tackle. I can't. Their names are too close. We have to rename them.
Devontae and Deontay. Come on now. Come on,
so it's tackle Armstrong and guard Armstrong. The tackle especially, but even the guard, man, they're already there. I mean, as far as the measurables go, and they've got a nasty streak to them, man. Those 4 days that I was at practice, they were scrapping and chirping and sticking up for their teammates in a way that I really like to see. So I feel fine about next year. It's after that when you start talking about these numbers.
Yeah, it's definitely they're going to be a younger line, but when we look at some of these guys, and I think we have been the class last year has been massively undersold with the Armstrong twins and Ian Moore. Gabe Van Sickle, another guy, we don't know how that's going to turn out yet, but Ian Moore and the Armstrong twins so far looking great. And I think Ian Moore just might end up being a real good lineman. But I'm looking forward to seeing those guys next year for sure. R. Shelley says, thanks for the 10, buddy. What's up, all? Good to see you, Unc. Talking about Uncle Lou. That made my day, guys. I can't tell you how big of a fan I've been of that guy for a decade. That was really cool. They somehow need a better O-line and maybe linebacker recruiting. Oh no.
What?
If it would be anywhere near the wide receiver and quarterbacks, it would be outstanding. So linebacker recruiting, we got a class, buddy. So we've got Riley Pettijohn, 5-star linebacker out of Texas, super athlete, a little on the smaller side, lightweight, so like a Ryan Shazier kind of size, but amazing speed, ran a 10.7 100 meter, and the kid loves football. TJ Alford out of the Miami area, highly rated 4-star. We're talking about on the 247 composite, the number 2 and number 5 rated linebacker. And then you add on my local boy out of Akron here from Hoban, Eli Lee, was the first to commit. 6'3". He told me he's up to 232. So an absolute thumper, but way more. He's being compared to Tommy Eichenberg. He's considerably more athletic than Tommy Eichenberg. He can cover a back and coming out of the backfield. The kid's going to be really good. So this particular linebacker class coming up looks fantastic. And on these linebackers on the team right now, we're deep. When you talk about Gabe Powers and Arvell Reese looking ready to play, Arvell Reese winning the player of the silver bullet of the day, the last scrimmage, and they're having a scrimmage today, but last Saturday's scrimmage. By the way, guys, I was told by somebody that the block O and the captains are probably going to be announced today at practice. So let's look out for that. So final predictions before they come out. On the block O, I'm going with Cody Simon. Let's go around. Devin.
I'll go Cody Simon.
JR.
I already saw it, but
You saw it?
I put it all in the private chat there. I put it all there in the private chat for you, Jack.
Oh, I never look at that thing. I didn't.
Juck, you got to check it out. JR's got some good stuff in there. Look in the private chat.
I've been putting some of this information from Twitter in the private chat because I was I don't want these guys to miss it.
Okay, I see it now. Okay, captains were announced. JR announced the block.
I'm sorry, I should have said something, Jack.
Announced the block O.
The block O.
Cody Simon.
I don't see that in the notes. Is that on Twitter? Is the block O on Twitter?
The Ohio State football account. And then you want the 4 captains, Juck?
The 4 captains are Cody Simon. I've been telling you guys, James Laurinaitis has told me that. It was secret information. Emeka Ibuka, Jack Sawyer, Travion Henderson. I am a little surprised Denzel's not in there. I thought, being that he took Denzel to Big Ten Media Days, he would be in there. Obviously, there's a ton of guys that are worthy this year of being captain. I still like that they kept it to only 4. I don't like that huge pile of captains they were doing under Urban late, but obviously fantastic captains. And I'm really happy that Cody won the Block O, though I really don't like looking at the Block O out on the field. To me, that's like looking at Devin wearing 33, but I'm really happy for him. I think he definitely deserves it. So good for him. What do you think, Dev?
No, I'm down with the decisions, man. I like it a lot. I like that there's only 4, like you said. Dude, you could have went in so many different directions there. I love the Block being Cody Simon, but like you said, dude, I feel like there's four captains on paper, but there's really a lot more on this team, and the players know it. I think that's what really counts, what really matters.
Yeah, I think that Cody Simon, you've talked about it, Jack. He has better athleticism than I think people realize, and for him to walk on senior day last year and see the potential that this team has and still come back, like you can tell there is a whole lot of passion. There's a whole lot of, I mean, just everything you want in one of your leaders there for him to want to come back and do that, even after last year when it looked like he was ready to move on. So Jack Sawyer, like Jack Sawyer and all these other guys, they deserved it too. I can't say anybody else deserved it over somebody else. So I'm just glad that one of the 5 or 6 guys that I was thinking of got it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's fantastic. Blue Wolverine, disappointing to lose an offer, but good job with the show. It was great seeing so many different guests. Multiple opinions are always a good thing. And I want to let you guys know that this is kind of the format I'm planning on using for the post-game show, which I'm going to be doing every game this year, bringing on some of my favorite guys to kind of pop in with me for 10 minutes at a time. Give us a little recap. We're going to have a lot of fun on that post-game show. I'm going to come in towards the end of the 4th quarter, and we'll have a hell of a time. So join me for the post-game show this year. And I want to shout out Andy Graham, a new member of the Juck on Bucks channel. Andy, thank you so much, buddy. Appreciate you. As well as Mello and Emily, who both also joined. And you guys can find that on the description of all my videos on YouTube or on the front of the page there. I pop on and do some private lives just with the members, and we have a good time. So go ahead and join that if you want to. And let's move on from offensive line, guys. I want to talk about quarterback. Quarterback was just announced. I am very interested in how excited Ryan Day seemed with Will Howard's improvement, how excited he seemed to announce it. Do you think that Will Howard is improved, or do you think we really saw what he is and we know what he is, and he's just excited about the offense running with Will Howard? Could he have possibly gotten better in this short of time? I mean, it sounds like we've heard about velocity picking up, some things like that. Dan, you're obviously someone who's big in on quarterback play. You're a former quarterback, a superstar quarterback. Tell me what your opinion is on that.
That's okay. First of all, I appreciate you lying on my behalf. So I mean, listen, I mean, it's very well known that I've been a huge advocate of Will Howard since it was mentioned he was coming to us.
That's number 2, Dan. Number 2.
Listen, I mean, here's the deal. I think that, and Jock, you and I have talked about this at length. I think it was Will's job to lose. I think Devin was going to have to be very, very impressive to win it. And I think Will was going to have to turn the ball over a lot to lose it. And while I do think that Devin made significant strides year over year, I mean, I think for people that think Devin Brown is the same guy that he was last year as he is right now, that's just not realistic. I mean, he's got a whole nother year of development under him and a whole nother, year of reps. But I think Will did what he needed to do. And I think that his experience showed in camp. I think Will is really, here's what I saw those first 4 days. Will was a lot better inside the 20 and between the numbers than I even thought he was going to be. I knew that was where he was strong throwing the ball, but he was really, really strong throwing the ball inside of 20 yards and in between the numbers. Where Will, I didn't see a lot of him taking shots downfield. I think he was playing it a little safe because I think he knew that if the only way he was going to lose the job was for him to turn the ball over. He had one turnover worthy throw downfield, and then he came back, to his credit, and had just a beautiful ball to Trey on a wheel route that was about the same distance down the sideline on the opposite side. He definitely has a presence about him out there. I definitely saw him taking command. I hate to use Ryan's word of the year. Last year it was consistency. This year it's command.
Don't say feel. What feel? I feel him. Everybody feels him.
I did see him taking command of that team a little bit more day over day, those first 4 days that I was there. I think we're in really, really good shape with the roster that we have, with Will leading the charge there. I do still have the same concerns that I have. It's really only one concern at this point, and this is the only thing that some people are going to focus on me saying, is that, if he has to win a game for us throwing the ball downfield, I think there's a good calculated risk that we're not going to need that our defense is so strong that we're not going to have, we're not going to be down 2 scores late in the game at any point in this season, that he's going to have to win for us. Yeah. I think that, I think Dev is the obvious choice for QB2. We can have that as a separate conversation if you want, or I can talk about it now.
So make the routine plays routinely and 2-minute offense. That's what he wants to see. The 2-minute offense stuff, that's what I can't wait to see. I'm with you. I want to see how that looks. The 2-minute offense with Will. But I'm excited, man. I'm excited. And I did a real arc with Will Howard. I was not very excited. I felt really confident when we signed Will Howard. And then people started picking. I started looking in a little further, and I started getting a little skittish about it. Was this the right guy to go after in the transfer portal? And ever since then, we've just kind of seen a trajectory going up and up and up. Dev, how are you feeling about it?
Yeah. So for me, when I heard that we were going to get, or were interested in Will Howard, I went back and started watching a lot of film, right? So this is just as fan speaking, but what I saw was a gamer, right? It was somebody that went in there and did whatever needed to win the game. And I mean, the weakest part, obviously, downfield passing. I personally believe that a lot of the fan base and have blown that out of proportion, in the sense that Will was put in some pretty crazy situations and had to take those chances, being where he was at Kansas State, to win those games, right? And then obviously you can get into the conversation of skill, right? Now, he had good skill players that played for him at Kansas State, but unfortunately, when you compare him to Ohio State, they're not close. You know what I mean? So definitely, man, the 2-minute offense worries me a little bit. I want to see it. I feel more comfortable that he's got Ryan Day and Chip Kelly sitting there teaching him how to do it. The thing that I'm most excited about that Will Howard is our QB is the red zone. Very pumped to see this dude get in the red zone, and to go from what we watched last year to what we're going to watch this year in the red zone. Amen. Now, how we get to the red zone, let's see, right? I'm pumped we got Trey, dude, and Quinshawn back there, and Chip Kelly. I think that he's really good at using the players that he has, their skill set. So Chip knows, can't pass it downfield. I'm not quite sure, like Dan said, that we're going to need to too often. So, that's my thoughts and how I feel about Will. I'm excited to have him as the starting quarterback.
JR, with Devin being the number 2 quarterback, we know that once you get in the season, that number 3 guy, he's not getting any reps. So if that number 3 guy is Julian, how could he potentially get over Devin and get to that number 2 spot? I know a lot of people think that's going to happen. I just don't know how that happens with no reps.
Well, I think you're in a little bit of a different situation with 5 quarterbacks on the roster now. It's not like you have 3 where your third guy has to be, what's it called? The practice team.
He doesn't, but they're not gonna interrupt practice to let that third guy. You know what I mean? There's only so many.
No.
The 1 and 2 guy.
Right. I'm just saying this isn't a normal QB room situation where you only have 3 or 4 guys. I do think that they're gonna give a lot of reps in fall practice and stuff like that to try and see, should we put somebody else in there? But I mean, at the end of the day, it really sounds like Ryan Day and Chip Kelly have prioritized trying to get as many reps out there for as many guys as they can. So while I agree with you, Juck, that I think that, they're probably going to figure that out in the fall practice, I don't know how they would have a position battle for the second string quarterback going on during the season. I don't think you want that going on. I don't think it makes hardly any sense. If you're trying to figure out your second string quarterback and you're still in week 2 or week 3, you're right. Practice is going to be dysfunctional for trying to get the second guy ready as well. And especially if Will Howard goes down unexpectedly, who are you going to turn to? Who are you going to put him in there? So they're going to have to decide this before the season starts. And for people saying that Julian Sayin is going to take it like midway through the year or something like that, that's my question. How is that going to happen? You're not going to be evaluating your second string QB when you're trying to get ready for, I don't know, Iowa or Nebraska or somebody like that, so I guess it could happen a little bit within the first 3 weeks, but it just seems like unnecessary distraction in my mind. I think you got to decide it during fall practice.
Here's how I think it's going to play out. And I will preface this by saying none of us are ever going to know if it's playing out this way. But having been on a coaching staff before with a quarterback battle, this is what I think is going to happen. Number one, you have to go into the beginning of the season with quarterback 2 that could go in if Will Howard blew out his knee tomorrow. I just cringed when I said that out loud. If we needed a quarterback, I'm sorry, my brother's going to punch me in the face too because he blew out his knee in high school, and that's why I just got a sick feeling in my stomach when I said it. You need your QB2 to be ready after one play, right? Aaron Rodgers went down after 4 plays last year. Yeah. That's got to be Devin right now. He's got more experience than Julian with the playbook.
For sure.
Okay. I can see behind the scenes, I can see where they would start to maybe shift some of the reps between Devin and Julian getting ready for next year. But here's the quandary. I don't think Devin's back next year. I wouldn't come back next year if I was Devin. He's got 2 years left. He's got to go somewhere and play. Our quarterback room's looking at being really, really, really thin next year. So is there a world where Day tries to keep Devin on the squad for next year just for depth and more or less tell him that he's got a shot next year? I don't know. But I can see where Devin's getting most of the reps, and then I can see behind the scenes Julian starting to get more, and then Day's kind of got 2 number 2s in case something happens at that point. But he's got to get Julian some reps if he's going to be the guy next year. I just don't know how he does it because Devin's got to be number 2 to start the season.
It's a bit of a conundrum. And next year will. I mean, you're looking at a very young quarterback room. But I'm with you. I don't see how Devin could possibly feel confident enough to stick around after losing 2 quarterback battles when he was right there. I just don't see it. I would love it. He's such a great Buckeye. He should be celebrated. I can't stand the fact that there are some folks who click up in a camp and be like, this is my guy and I dislike that guy. Like, these are all Buckeyes. Devin's been a great Buckeye. I don't know how anybody could not love him as a Buckeye, whether you think he should be playing or not. That really bothers me, but it is what it is. I don't know what else to say about it. I've said it plenty of times.
Part of me wants him to go for like his own well-being because I don't want to see him in this position again. I love him. I think he's a great quarterback, and I want to see him go play football, right? So part of me wants him to go because I know that if he goes, he can go somewhere and succeed and be that. And as far as the number 2 quarterback, part of me questions whether Day said that on there to try to, because Julian Sayin is the future and he wants to keep him engaged. So it was more of that, not a question of who's number 2. It's got to be Devin Brown, man. Like Dan said, the dude's got to be able to come in and play right now. Julian Sayin cannot do that, right? So
right.
it's got to be Devin. And part of me questions, like I said, because saying is the future. Did they say that to keep him engaged in the hopes that he gets better? So,
well, let's not gloss over the fact that they literally did say verbatim, Devin is number 2 right now.
Yeah.
I mean, he did say that. People want to gloss over it because of everything he said about Julian afterwards. But yeah, man, there's a lot of politicking going on right now and roster management going on right now in that room. I mean, if we're going into next season with Julian, Air, and St. Clair in the room, they better be really sure about Julian and Air. I mean, don't be shocked if we don't get somebody out of the portal next year that's actually halfway decent just for some depth.
Yeah, that's a young room.
Yeah, really young. Talented is all get out. But it's young, man.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. One of the other things they said in that press conference that surprised me when talking about the tight ends, it sounded like, and I hadn't heard this from anybody, that there was the potential of Will Kazmarek maybe taking that starting tight end role. It's something that I thought might happen when he was signed. I've got big concerns about G in the blocking game, and he said G is in and out. G, obviously, like Devin, great Buckeye. Absolutely love him. He does concern me in that aspect. And when he said G in and out, he's been doing this thing where he's been calling guys out a little bit in his press conferences recently to send a little message. He wants them to hear it. And he did it with Jelani, the press conference before he came back, talked about Jelani again, this time a little more complimentary. And he definitely is sending a message to Jelani. We want you to be ready and focused. The comment about G in and out, I don't know quite how to take it. Nobody asked a follow-up to that, which I find to be amazing. Like, you're talking about the guy we assume to be the starting tight end, and you just said he's in and out. What exactly do you mean by that? Not that he would have answered it, but I don't know, man. I got some concerns about tight end, and to be honest, we came into this season thinking, or into spring practice, we've got a couple groups that are areas of concern and a couple groups that are the best in the country. We got the DBs, we got the defensive line, we got the wide receivers, we got the running backs. These are number 1, 2, or 3 groups in the country. No need to worry or even talk about. When we talk about those groups, all we're talking about is depth. You know what I mean? We talk about defensive line, we talk about depth. We talk about guys like Jermaine Matthews and Calvin Simpson-Hunt. We're talking about the DBs. Talk about the wide receivers. We're not talking about the guys up top. We're talking about number 4. Who's going to be number 5? Who's going to be number 6? You know what I mean? When we talk about the offensive line, we had some issues. They're all cleared up for me. Like, the question's been answered. We know what we got. I'm confident in it. Quarterback, I'm feeling quite confident in it. Those questions have been answered. We're ready to roll. Tight end to me is now the one group. And if you were going to choose any group that might lag behind the others, and I don't think it's bad, but lags behind, I think it's tight end right now. I'm slightly concerned, not much, because you can hide tight ends in a lot of ways. And we do have some good blocking tight ends. When you look at Bennett Christian, Will Kazmarek, those are guys who can block their butt off. But you would want a little more, dynamic play out of there. And G could give you that if he could get the blocking assignments down. So G in and out. What do we think, guys? What did that mean? JR?
I have a thought. I don't know if I want to put it on him though, but I think that G, he's kind of gone through a little bit of a life transformation, and I don't know if I want to. I guess I'll just bring it up, but I hope nobody takes it as like a knock on him or something like that. But I mean, he's gone through a little bit of like a spiritual transformation in his life, and somebody who grew up knowing a lot of people who were immensely talented and had a lot of, faith in their life and things like that. At a certain point, sports just kind of become secondary to what is going on in the rest of your life. And so by no means is any of this like insider knowledge. I talk to G. Scott daily or anything like that. But like, my thought process is like, was football just always the biggest thing in his life? And now that he's found faith, and now that he went and he preached at a church and was baptizing his teammates and stuff like that. Like, for him, is he finding, like a different purpose in his life other than football, to where, like, yes, he's there at practice, yes, he's doing all these things, but he's also focused on his faith and focused on, maybe a career in ministry or something like that? I don't know. That's my thought process. That's where I went. Again, no insider knowledge here where I'm saying, like, this is for sure happening, but I know a lot of people in the faith community, and being one of them myself, and that to me seems like a very, very likely thing, that he could just be finding this new life in faith where football has become almost like a secondary thing to him, and maybe his thought process on what's most important to him in life is in and out. I don't know if that makes any sense to you guys, but that is where at least my thought process went. Tell me if you guys think I'm wrong.
I was under the impression he's always been that into his faith. Like that, I didn't know that was something that was newer.
No, I don't know if it was brand new in college, but it seems like it's become a higher priority in college. Really, I don't know if he's always had faith.
I think it's blocking assignments. That's what I think it is.
That's a much simpler version and probably more correct.
I tell you, when I heard him say in and out, what popped in my mind was last year in the Missouri game, Trey Henderson had about a 20-yard run that would have went to the house if he would have blocked. And then if you go rewatch that play, you look over there, he's just sitting there shuffling his feet. The receiver's 10 yards in front of him. So instead of going up, blocking that receiver, Trey's gone, man. That's what he did. So in and out, when Day said that, that's the image that popped in my head. And I still think that's probably going on, man. Now, whether that's missed assignments, doesn't want to block, whatever, but I still think he probably got that same type of thing going on because he was an experienced, he'd been around long enough last year to I would say, know that play and know that he should have been up there blocking that dude.
I think he definitely wants to get after it. I don't think it's a lack of desire to block. I see from him consistently poor angles, engaging with no power. It just looks like an offensive line coach could teach him how to do it. I don't know what's not connecting there. He's certainly got a little more size. Do you just need to go the safer route right now with Will Kazmarek, who, when you're running out 11 personnel? He seems to me to be the safer option because we know he can block. But Keenan Bailey, I think if the tight ends play well this year, he will have shown us that he's a pretty damn good coach. Not so sure what we can expect out of that room. Dan, what do you think?
Oh, Coach Key. I don't know, man. I have a hard time taking the guy seriously. I know I said that about the O-line coach, man, but he's out there on the field. He's got his T-shirt tucked into his gym shorts, and they're pulled up higher than they should be. And then there's the thing about him getting his butt kicked in the weight room in front of his team. And I don't know. I didn't see any improvement whatsoever with the tight ends last year at all.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very, very concerned about it. The Will Kazmarek thing is interesting, Juck, because, I got a good buddy who played football at Ohio U, and he obviously follows him very closely. And he said he was more of a pass catching tight end. Like when we got him in the portal, I asked him about him, and he said he's a pass catching tight end. So there's this assumption that we went out and got him because he's a blocker, but I'm not sure that was his game at OU. I'm concerned about the tight end position. I really am. And I'm going to sum up all of my concerns that, my motto this year is in Chip we trust. I think the guy, when it comes to the downfield passing game, I trust that Chip is going to dial up some easy shots like he did with DTR out at UCLA. And I think he's going to be really creative with the way we use the tight ends in the offense as well. But I've got concerns, with the blocking at the tight end position. I am no longer concerned with our wide receivers blocking after what we heard the other day.
Wow. How great. Say that again.
Awesome.
What happened? This is fantastic.
So basically, there was a play where the receivers didn't block, and Chip, he lit up Brian Hartline in front of the entire congregation. And he said, listen, if you want the running backs to F and block for your receivers in pass pro so they can catch the ball, then you better have your receivers F and block for my running backs when they're running the ball. So that was in front of everybody. The message was delivered. And I love it, man, because that's the adult in the room that we needed.
It
Amen.
absolutely is. And I know that a lot of people, they get irritated when you make that criticism. Brian Hartline is the best wide receiver coach in the country. It's not close. This is something his wide receivers haven't done great. It's just a fact. And had they done great or been better at it, we just seen some more chunk plays. We've seen a lot of missed blocks, a lot of lack of desire. Blocking from wide receivers is a want-to position. And if you create the environment where that is something that is rewarded and something that they embrace, we saw it under Urban Meyer teams, wide receivers blocked, and that was the deal. And because I feel almost that there is, because Zach Smith has brought this up a lot about the wide receivers' lack of blocking, that there is this backlash that that's not the case. But just objectively speaking, it is the case. They haven't been very good at it. They haven't embraced it. You see it in the games. You certainly see it in the All-22. And with Chip there saying, getting on Hart, getting on these guys that they need to embrace it, it makes me feel very confident that they are going to.
And that, let's be honest here, that has just as much with the soft label under Ryan as anything. It's the ancillary stuff like that. It's not just because of the trenches. It's little things like that too. Like, I coached receivers in high school and my receivers blocked. And when we played against a team whose receivers didn't block, our guys thought they were soft.
It's true. I want to get to this comment from Jimmy J. Jimmy says Carter Lowe was coming to OSU anyway. He's from Ohio, Juck. You could have recruited Lowe here. Listen, I'm a good recruiter, first off. So I don't but I want to be listen, I want to give Fry, I want to be fair. You know what I'm saying? When you're from Toledo, that's a 50-50 city. So, you're going against Michigan, who's the other part of that 50. I think that was a big win. I really do. And this comment from our buddy RM, most of the offensive line drafted early this year were 3 stars. This is a big skewed stat here that I just want to make clear. There are 32 5 stars every year. There are 200 to 400 4 stars. There are 2,000 3 stars. So when you see a stat like that, yes, it's true. There's way, way more. So, if we look at the percentage of 5 stars drafted early in the first round, it's a huge percentage compared to the percentage of 3 stars. So, when we see that, while it's true, it kind of is a little misleading. And not to mention the money that these recruiting services are putting in increases tremendously every year to scouting, and they're getting better and better and better. I know that there's a lot of, stars don't matter. They don't matter, but they're certainly getting better, and it's a better way to at least lead you down the road of where you see guys with the most potential, and then you can do the evaluation from there.
Oh, and
But
a lot of these guys are they're projecting athleticism and stuff like that. There's a lot of players that have stuff that go on off the field or injuries that happen that nobody could ever predict that was going to happen, right? I mean, Harry Miller was a 5-star. Was anybody ever going to predict that he would have to, retire at some point and just never get drafted? Does that skew into the stat that 24/7 missed here because they had him as a 5-star? I don't know who had him as a 5-star, but whoever had him as a 5-star here, they missed. Yeah, they were projecting him out athletically to be really good, but they had no idea if something would happen off the field to make it so he wouldn't even have a football career anymore.
I want to hit on Mika's comment here. Quarterback in the class of 2026, obviously we could not get any of the big dogs in, and why would we? They don't want to play behind Julian Sayin, behind Tavian St. Clair. So nobody coming. And is it Levi? Is it Nathan Bernhard? Are they going to go with Brady Palmer? I want to go with the guy with a lot of upside, a guy who's maybe got some flaws, but a ton of upside. When you look at Levi, he's a little smaller, but he seems to have it all. I wouldn't mind taking a flyer on him. You look at Nathan Bernhard, really strong arm, big kid, not very polished, got a ways to go. Take a flyer on him. When you look at Brady Palmer, this is a guy that he doesn't have any one trait that jumps out, but he's a much more polished guy at that age. I'm not interested in that. I want a guy with a really high upside. You got Brady Edmonds coming behind in 27, the number one quarterback in the country. By my estimation, we've watched his film here on the show. He's fantastic. His his grandfather from Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio. We're just north of me here. And grew up a Buckeye fan. On his goals in 8th grade, his number 1 goal or number 3 goal after church or school or something was be the quarterback at Ohio State. Big in on Ohio State. There's really good communication between Ryan Day and Chip and Brady Edmonds. So that's looking really well. But in the class of 2026, what are you guys thinking?
No, I agree. I mean, I agree with what you said. You know, they're just going to have to go out there, do some senior year, evaluations and find somebody that's, got some high upside in one area and then has another area that they're really solid at, man, because dude, I'm excited for Brady Edmonds coming in, dude. He's 247 has him listed as 6'5", 200 pounds. And now I know that's way down the road and whatnot, but from what I've seen, I'm excited about him. And then, we got Tavian Sinclair coming in. So I'm on board with what you just said, man. Find somebody that, has some area that they need some help in, and let's just hope that, we can give them that help and then round their game out altogether.
I would take a flyer on the kid that Chris likes out of Ohio. I don't see Day doing it because he's barely 6 foot tall, but
that's 26 Levi Davis.
Yeah. So, but to your point, the 26 class, it's a sandwich year for the position. I mean, if you think about it, if Julian, we're looking at St. Clair doing what Arch Manning just did with yours. Julian plays as a sophomore, junior, and goes. That means Tavian's not starting until he's a junior, true junior. And then, unless he's one and done, you're probably looking at him for 2 years, which means that Edmonds now is waiting until he's a junior. Man, quarterbacks, they're just not that patient in this day and age. So it's going to be really interesting to see how it plays out. That 26 quarterback doesn't really have a spot, I think, for a true future. That's why I take a flyer on Levi Davis.
I'm with that. Are you guys nervous of only seeing Tavian for 1 year? I mean, I'm nervous about him being a one and done. That would suck, dude. All this time, we've known him all this time. He comes in for 2 years behind Julian. We get to see him for 1 great year, and then he's out. Oh, I would hate that.
I think people learn from Haskins, at least in the Ohio State world. Haskins should have stayed another year. But then we probably wouldn't have got Fields. So who knows, man? I mean, just listen to the way we're talking about it and imagine now you're having to manage that.
Yeah.
I don't envy those guys, man.
And look how much we're projecting out right now. Like there's so many things that could change and whatnot. So, you never know. But if things project like we're talking, dude, yeah, man, I don't want to just see him for 1 year, but I don't see that happening, man. We learned a hard lesson there.
I want to hit on one more piece of recruiting. Jerome Miles. I don't know if anybody saw Jerome Miles, the clip from him last night in his first game. Jerome Miles, 5-star wide receiver. The last wide receiver on the board, big time wide receiver. Decommitted out from Ole Miss. Heartline's in on him. He likes the Bucks. He also likes home state Utah and Texas A&M, which makes me really nervous that we're not really going to get to move this needle a whole lot because we know how much Texas A&M is spending this cycle in Mike Elko's first cycle. They want to give him everything that he needs. They think they got the guy, and that makes me slightly concerned. But wow, this dude's he's really, really good. Amazingly fast, about 6'2", kind of built a little bit like Quincy Porter, but doesn't play that bully ball type of game. He plays a speed type of game with that size, which is really something. But then we've got Phillip Bell making his decision August 31st. And for everybody watching, we'll be back here on August 31st for Phillip Bell's decision, because whether or not, Phillip Bell is in this class or not is going to be really interesting as to where we go with that fourth wide receiver. But without a doubt, Hart's going to bring in a fourth wide receiver because he's certainly not going to the transfer portal for one. He is a coach who refuses to do that. So we're going to see a fourth wide receiver in this class. Phillip Bell, obviously his mom, we talked about it before, tragically passed away. He is making this announcement, and I believe it's her birthday. So really emotional day. He's from out west. The other school that we're going up against here is USC. And the passing of his mother, being that this was a really close race between Ohio State and USC, I don't know. It would kind of leave me inclined to believe that he wants to stay out at, closer to home with family. But, who knows? I could be way off on that. I have seen that some of the Ohio State recruiting guys have given crystal balls for him to Ohio State. I think Phillip Bell's really, really good. He's really good. I personally would prefer Jerome Miles. I think most people would if they watch both of their film back-to-back. But I don't know that you can roll the dice because Jerome Miles isn't going to make it a commitment for a while out. But Phillip Bell, JR, what do we think? In or out?
I mean, it's really, really tough to call. I'm with you. I think that losing the mom and all that stuff, obviously, hope for the best for him, but it's hard to leave home after that. So I tend to believe he's probably going to stay at USC, at least with this announcement. Now, who knows, if USC doesn't have a good year, if, maybe the receivers don't do great or something, could be something down the line. But I think at least for this commitment, he's probably going to commit to USC.
Dan?
Yeah, I think he goes to USC now. Is he somebody that would be on flip watch? Maybe. I think it goes a little bit further. And if I've been getting some information on the scrimmage, so sorry if I missed this part of it, but I think it goes a little bit further. I think his mom actually asked him to stay home before she passed away. So I see him staying home.
Dev?
I'm going to be the odd man out, dude. I see him in the class. I like our chances to land Phillip Bell more than I like our chances to land Jerome Miles.
I agree that the chances, Texas A&M just makes me, I think the kid wants to play for Heartline. There's no doubt about that. But we've seen that in today's day and age, it's just, if you're not fielding a very competitive offer, and I don't think that Ohio State will for any wide receiver this cycle, when we're talking about how much this guy's going to command, because let's keep in mind, when you're committing late in the class, you've got desperate people and more people are going to get in who are spending big money. It just makes me not feel too incredibly confident about it, even though I think that they've got a pretty good connection for Hart, having got in late in this class with him. But you never know. We'll see. Guys,
Did we ever figure out why he decommitted from Ole Miss? Sorry, just ask a question.
It's a really good question. He decommitted in that same time period where they lost that stud defensive lineman shortly after Akeelan Deere decommitted. And, they lost a chunk of really good prospects, which makes me feel like a money issue. You know what I mean? Like when you lose three really highly rated guys all at once, it just seems like did something NIL related happen? But I never got any other kind of information on why that did happen.
Yeah, I asked primarily because I just pulled up his 24/7 profile while I'm sitting here, and he visited Texas A&M 3 days before he decommitted. So you would have thought that, if he was a Texas A&M lean, then he might have committed shortly after or something like that. I mean, he also took an official to Michigan.
He did.
But since we're not hearing any buzz about them, I guess that means maybe it didn't go well or something. But I don't know. It's interesting to me that he made that official to Texas A&M, and he hasn't really done anything after that. He also visited Utah as well, which I think that's the home school there. So they're probably going to get a visit. But I don't know. I mean, we'll see what happens with Jerome Miles. But I think you see what happens during the season if he comes in for a visit and what goes on there. But I wouldn't necessarily say that just because A&M has all the money that, he's going there for them. I think there's a little bit more hope here in Jerome Miles than maybe some people think.
Yeah, So the word is that Jerome Miles, his wide receiving coach, some wide receiving coach out in that area, reached out to Ohio State and let them know that he was interested in playing for Ohio State. So a little something I read somewhere.
He went to he goes to the same school that Brown came out of for 1 year.
Yeah.
Corner Canyon. Hey, we've already got our 5-star in this year's wide receiver class. And I don't mean the guy that's fringe 5-star in Quincy Porter, who is really, really good. I mean, Des Jones. I've been saying it for months now that Des Jones is our 5-star receiver in this class. That kid is dynamic. His route running out of the slot is some of the best I've seen for a high school player in I don't know how long. And his hands are, I mean, he'll tell you he's got the best hands in America. But his film, man,
Certainly will.
he is, he's a perfect example of why you don't necessarily look at star ratings. You got to look at the film. And his film is fantastic.
Yeah, he gets
really
small on his routes, man. I
Oh.
watch his film. That dude gets small when he's running his routes and makes it hard to cover.
Absolutely. I want to talk about for a second the AP, and it came out right after the coaches poll. I just want to ask you guys stuff because I found this just really odd. The groupthink in college football is ridiculous, but I'm going to pull this up here. So we've got, oh shoot, let me get this other thing off here. Do you guys know how to get that comment off? I need that damn comment off of there.
Click the same comment again.
Appreciate your comment, buddy. I want to get back to what he had to say. But when we look at this, is it cutting off the top? I think it's cutting off the top.
It is.
Yeah, gummit. All right. My point is we've got the exact same 25 teams, and a couple of them are flipped a little here, a little there. You might have this team flipped for that team. The same exact 25 teams, almost in the same identical order from the coaches and the AP. And it's just ridiculous, dude. I looked at the number of first place votes. Georgia with 46, Ohio State with 15. Oregon had one in the AP poll. Michigan had one in the coaches poll. Oregon getting a first place vote was wild. What do you guys think of that?
It's all hype.
Politics.
Can I tell you that I was feeling that game was looking like a coin flip game out at Autzen to me for a while. And at this point in fall camp, I now think that that's going to be a decisive victory for Ohio State.
Dude, I've called it for a minute. I got Ohio State by 14 points. I think Oregon will be good in the Big Ten. I just don't see it this year. I think they got some adjusting to do.
I mean, Dan Lanning is literally the Ryan Day narrative through
100%.
his first 2 years. I mean, the narrative that Ryan can't win a big game, number one, it's just not true. But number two, Lanning's 2 years in. He's had 5 big games and he's lost all of them.
To Washington twice.
Boy, he lost to Washington 3 times. He's 0 for 3 against Washington. And then his first year, he lost to Utah twice. He lost in the regular season, then he lost in the Pac-12 championship game to them again, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe I'm mistaken on that. I don't, or did they lose to USC? They lost to somebody twice in his first season. So
could somebody explain to me how you could possibly justify ranking him as the 3rd best coach in college football?
Listen, this is the same guy that listed Spencer Rattler over CJ Stroud as NFL prospect. So if
There
you
you
ever
go.
look at PFF rankings, just know if it doesn't have their grades on there, it's probably one of the worst things you're ever going to read.
Hey, Juck, you need to make a graphic like that, dude, and rate your top 10 and put it out there.
I've
That
done
way
it, Dev. I did. Yeah, I did my top 10 on the show before. I did. In the off season, everybody does those top 10 coaching lists, and I find them absolutely incredibly. The hot thing to do this particular year, and you'll see it every year. They take the hot new guy, and you look at a guy like Lance Leipold, who's done an amazing job at Kansas, but you can't tell me that a guy who coaches at Kansas is the 2nd best coach in football. You just can't tell me that. I'm not going to go for it. I think that's ridiculous. Yes, he's done a great job building a program, but until you test yourself, and this is why I love Kyle Whittingham, but Kyle Whittingham never moved up into the biggest of big boy football. Until you do that, you can't be the best to me. Until you're competing for national championships, you can't be the best to me. And that's how I feel about Lance Leopold. We're talking about a guy who built a dynasty at Wisconsin Whitewater and took down Mount Union in their dynasty. Incredible amount of respect. Did good at Buffalo for a couple of years, goes to Kansas, takes a crap program into a contender, but he's now signed a long contract. He's going to stay there, and he's not going to do much at Kansas from here on out. He'll compete for Big 12 titles, I think, maybe win a few here or there, and that'll be it. Kalen DeBoer, they had him like number 3 on all those lists. So Kalen DeBoer, similar to Lance Leopold in the NAIA, won 3 national championships, and then he goes, takes Washington to a national championship. Now he gets the job at Bama. You want to put him 3, and then they all got Brian Kelly towards the back of the top 10. What did Brian Kelly do? He also won national championships at a lower level at Grand Valley State, and then he took Notre Dame to the playoffs a couple times. But they just forget about him now because he was that same position a long time ago. So it's just a hot young guy, and that bothers me. When I talk about Ryan Day, you look at Ryan Day's resume, you look at Kirby Smart's resume, both not so great against their rival. Kirby wasn't great against Saban. Ryan Day not been great against his rival. You look at their conference championships, same number, essentially the same. You look at everything about these guys. Kirby Smart didn't win a national championship till his 6th year. Ryan Day is now in his 6th year. Literally the only thing that separates Ryan Day and Kirby Smart's record, recruiting about the same, winning percentage. If you factor in that Kirby's got a couple more tough games a year playing in the SEC, winning percentage, Ryan Day's is better. But Kirby's, they're about the same. The only thing that's different in these two guys' resumes was settled on the field between the two of them in a final drive in a game that I think Ryan Day outcoached Kirby Smart in. That's it. Kirby Smart has 2 national championships. Ryan Day has none. That game goes the other way, and we know how close the game was. They each got 1. Their resumes are the same, and what's the argument then? The argument is, who's the best coach, Ryan Day or Kirby Smart? But because that didn't happen, Kirby's a legend. Ryan Day's Larry Coker. It drives me nuts. They got him 10th on any list. I can't take you seriously.
Well, and I'll say this, and then I got to go, guys. My kids just woke up from a nap, so my wife's gonna kill me if I'm not helping. But at the end of the day, this all goes back to the fact that Ryan Day didn't beat Michigan for 3 years, right? Mm-hmm. Which Ohio State fans rightfully get on him about. But at the end of the day, and I'm not making excuses for Ryan Day, but there is definitely question about the validity for at least 2 of those wins for Michigan. Last year, I do think that Ryan Day should have been a little bit more aggressive in certain points, and I think that he did not have his quarterback ready. You could argue he couldn't have got his quarterback ready, all that stuff. But sure, I do think there were aspects of that as well. But you're exactly right there, Jack, that there is literally one game that is separating Kirby Smart and Ryan Day in this situation. And look at what Kirby Smart has done against Nick Saban in his lifetime too. We don't want to hold him against Nick Saban, the experienced guy, and all that stuff. I mean, we don't want to hold that against him. It's just bias. People just love to poke the Ohio State fan base because they know if you hate on them, that they're going to bring it up in podcasts. You're going to tweet about it on Twitter. You're going to have all this stuff. And it all goes back to no publicity is bad publicity. So PFF puts rankings out there, everybody gets mad, and same thing with ESPN. ESPN puts Lance Leopold really high. Everybody knows ESPN is a joke, but guess what? Everybody still clicks on them because they're the ones that put out the most content. So it's the way they look at it. It sucks, but I mean that's part of Ohio State. That is why it's Ohio versus everybody. So
ESPN just did away with the last reason I even tuned into them. And I'm not talking about RG3.
All right, guys, I'll head out.
JR, Voice for College Football, Big Ten Huddle. Thanks, JR.
Thanks, guys. See you.
See you, JR.
Hey, man.
Yeah, I guess a field goal is worth 9 spots on when you're rating coaches. You
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
That's exactly it, man.
I mean, to JR's point, he's 1-4 against Saban.
Yeah.
Now, granted, that one was in the Natty. So
Hey, I got to ask you guys, you might not like me for asking you this, but do you hold the 3 losses to that team up north against Ryan Day? The years that they were cheating?
That's a loaded question.
Really
So here's
is.
the deal.
Don't
I
load
saw,
it. Just
I saw things from Ryan in those games that drove me nuts. And it's the same tight sphincter that I used to see on Harbaugh when he was playing Urban. Not knowing what was going on at the time, I didn't like what I saw from Ryan and the tightness that I saw from him. I got to give him a pass at this point, at least those first 2 years, because now we know that, what could have been going through his head was like, how in the hell do they know what the hell we're doing?
Yeah.
I don't know. I give him a pass for those first 2 years. Last year was a very winnable game regardless. Here's the deal with Ryan, and I'm sure Juck's going to have a really good take on all this. I have come to despise, I do not like this phrase. I cringe every time I hear them say it. Matchup game. I don't know where that came from. It came out of somewhere a couple years ago. I never heard it before that. And now all of a sudden,
outside of Columbus.
it drives me nuts because as soon as I hear matchup game, I hear tight sphincter. Like, what do you mean by a matchup game? Like, does that mean you're going to be really conservative and tight and hope it comes down to the, that you're ready to, you're there to win it on the last drive of the game or the last quarter? Like, just play your game, man. Like, if you got thoroughbreds, open the gates. Let them run around the track.
Yeah. No, to me, it means treating them different, right? Treating those games differently. And that's why, and somebody said it here in the comments, but in those games, I feel as though, do I hold it against him? Honestly, like, there's part of me that thinks we should have done way better than we did, regardless of the advantage that they got. But the part that is difficult for me is you can never quantify how many points this was worth. Or like Dan said, like, what mental state of mind does that put you in as a coach when you're doing things and they seem to be countering with all the right stuff every single time? How much do you give them a break on that? But what I find irritating is when you see the same people who want to talk about, Michigan cheated, they don't deserve to have won those games, and then also really come down hard on Day. And you got a lot of those folks out there that play both sides of that argument. I find that difficult to reason, but I'm with Dan. Should have played better in those games, and in the big games, he has done really conservative things. And you bring up the field goal against Georgia. The 3 plays prior to that field goal, my word, man, you needed more yards there. You were never going to hit that field goal with that kicker in that moment at 50 flipping yards. You just weren't. It had no chance. He had to put his whole leg into it. And that thing is going to flip wide like that, or pull it or throw it wide 10 times out of 10 in that situation. You needed to get him more yards. You need to be a little more aggressive in that spot. So like to Dan's point, the aggressiveness, halftime against Michigan last year, it was the same type of deal. Settled for a long field goal, didn't need to, should have been trying to get some more yards, and it didn't happen. And that irritated me as well. So no, I don't hold it. It's such a weird period in time, right? That we're actually even talking about, do we hold a loss against a coach and this other team like cheated in an unquantifiable way? It's just a really difficult question. All in all, though, my opinion of Ryan Day is moving forward. Like, I just feel so much better about him because of the changes he made this offseason, because of the hires that he made, the changes on the staff, because of, getting a little more cutthroat with the roster management, because he's taking a larger class, because he took in Julian saying when he told Air he'd be the only quarterback in the class. A very difficult decision. I don't think he ever would have done it before because he gave up play calling, because he changed. He saw things weren't working. And so many coaches in that situation, when they're that close, and he was that close, just say, we got to keep on chopping wood. We hear them all say it. He didn't do that. He looked at himself. He looked at the program. He made some changes. And because of that, like I feel really confident in what he's done and the way he's been handling this CEO role so far and the way that recruiting's been going, despite the whole country talking bad about the soft program. I just feel a whole new renewed confidence in him that when I decided to start this show at the end of that Missouri game, and I was furious, what a difference, man. What a flipping difference in the mindset from everybody that follows and loves the program, and a difference from inside the program. We listen to the players now. I mean, gosh, they sound just different. Everybody sounds so confident when we look at practice and we hear these scraps coming out of practice, man. Like, that makes me feel so good. They're scrapping because both units are so good. It's so tight. It wasn't like that before. The defense was killing the offense. You know what I mean? You're scrapping because it's tight and they know, like, this is going to feel like the best team in the country they're going against every day when they get out there in these quote matchup games. Like, they already are ready because they're fighting against grown men, dudes that are 22 years old, and this team is going to win the national championship.
Yeah, he's in assassin mode is what I refer to it as. He just serial killer assassin mode seems to be his mindset. Just the way, the way he handled the QB decision, right? I mean, there's feedback I'm getting that, that competition was a lot closer than what he made it sound like the other day, but
right.
He said, listen, I'm going to be decisive and this is what it is. And this is what we're going with. And, let's go.
Yeah, to answer my question that I asked you guys, simply, I believe they cheated those 3 years. Therefore, I do not hold all 3 of the losses to our rival against Ryan Day, but the games still happen on the field. So I do hold some of the decision-making and game management things that he did against him, but the 3 losses, I just can't justify me believing they cheated those 3 years and also holding any of those losses against him. That's my opinion on it. So,
Dev, you're getting called out in the comments, man. Somebody wants money. They want Oregon plus 14.
Oh shoot! All right, how much you got, bro? How much you got?
Terry says he kind of wants revenge on Georgia, but he's hoping that they lose 3 games. I'm telling you what, man. I want them so bad, Terry. I want them so bad because if we don't beat them, everybody's going to say what they're saying now. If Georgia was in last year, they'd have won. Now, I want them bad. I want them head to head. I think we're the better team. I think that we would beat them pretty decisively. And I want them so bad. I'm so sick of everyone, and back to my coaching conversation, talking about Kirby Smart like the way that it was passed on so quickly that he's just going to fall into the Saban role and be that dominant guy. I don't buy it. I think it's nonsense. I want him bad. I want that game.
Yeah. Listen, this season's going to go one of 2 ways. It's either going to be the 2016 Golden State Warriors or that Lakers team that they put, Shaq and Kobe with the mailman and Peyton, or it's going to be the 98 Bulls. And obviously we all know what we hope it is, but it needs to end. I want the 98 Bulls, and I want us beating every great team this year along the way.
Yeah.
I want, we can get Ryan can get so many monkeys off his back this year.
Mm-hmm.
He can get the SEC thing. He can get the cheaters up north off his back. He can get the SEC, the big game narrative off his back. He can get the Kirby is better than him off his back. Like, I want to see it all unfold over the course of 6 weeks between the end, November 30th and January, whatever date it's going to be on this year.
Yeah, minus the team up north. What team do you guys want to see Day put the smackdown on this year? more than any other team. I think Juck answered already. I think,
Yeah.
are you going to pick Georgia?
Oh yeah, Georgia is for me for sure. But second,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I mean, outside of the rivalry game, of course, like that.
That's what I said. That's what I said. Yeah.
Right.
Outside of that, right?
Yeah.
What's that one team? I figured you'd pick Georgia. Dude, I just got a thing for Oregon right now, dude. I just want Day to go in there and put the smash down, dude. I don't know why. I just do.
They're so loud on Twitter, man. They're so loud. They're just like, and then you got these clowns and it turns out it was Dan Lanning that came up with it.
Yeah,
this team out west crap, like I actually liked Lanning last year when he got caught on the hot mic saying, they play for clicks and we play for wins. Well, I mean, he's like taking the exact opposite approach coming into the Big Ten this year.
He's running their playbook now. I mean, that's what they're doing. You got the big duck in the lake. You got
that was pretty funny.
It was awesome. It was awesome. Then you got the mascot going to the stadiums, right? Then you got the documentary that they're doing, the Hard Knocks style documentary that they've literally named the team out west, and they got him sitting in the chair saying, they talk about the team out west. No, dork, you're talking about the team out west. If you want that to catch on, it's not. No, but that's awesome, guys. All right, folks. Thank you so much for joining me. I want to make sure that everybody hits that like button on the way out. We're going to head out of here. Devin has a new podcast that he has started with our buddy Mello. It's called Buckeye Boyz, and it is airing on the OHIO podcast. Dan is from the Best Damn Podcast in the land, where him and our buddy Chad kick it a couple days a week. Please do check them out. And they're trying to get to 500 subscribers. We'd really like to make that happen for them. So please check them out at the Best Damn Podcast in the land. I'm Juck. I'm on every day on Menace to Sports and Juck on Bucks. I'm going to be doing a post-game show, and it's going to be similar to this. And I sure hope that you guys join me post-game. But, also you can catch me every weekend at Juck on Bucks, every weekday over at Menace to Sports. Well, 4 days a week. Nina limited me to 5 days. I'm only allowed to do 5 shows. So 4 days a week, 1 day on the weekend. I appreciate you all so much for joining us for this 3-hour marathon show. And we have lost David Sanders, but we're heading to the season of dreams. So whatever. We'll worry about all that later. We appreciate you all so much. Guys, thanks for joining me. Folks, we'll talk to you later. Juck on Bucks out.